Is this thing on?
Are you ready, Matt?
You're listening to Box Office Bingers
with Matt Diaz and Ernesto Santos.
Good evening, folks. We have a wonderful evening's entertainment lined up for you.
We know each other. He's a friend from work.
Box Office Bingers.
And the only way that I know how to do it is to find you a bloody good dump.
He's my friend. I don't have friends. I got family. I can do this all day.
You know, if you put your mind to it, you can accomplish anything.
Hello and welcome to another episode of Box Office Bingers, our last episode of 2023. Now, depending on when you're listening to this, it might be the first episode of 2024, but at the time of recording, it is the last episode of 2023. I hope everyone had a happy holiday. I know mine was busy. Ernesto, I hope yours...
We're better now. I mean, it was a little rough. We were sick, but, you know, our family, we're finally on the mend.
I'm glad to hear it. I'm glad we're back. It's been an interesting holiday season for sure. Especially what also dropped was the Oscars shortlist, which had all of the analysts in a frenzy of what might be and what is this and what is that.
Made
and
us
so
change.
we were gonna review. Sorry,
Made us change.
Made us change. Yeah, we were gonna review a movie, and now we did a pivot. So Ernesto, what is the movie we are reviewing today?
So we were supposed to review December, which is on Netflix. Now, staying with Netflix, we are reviewing Maestro, starring 9-time Oscar nominee Bradley Cooper and 2-time Oscar nominee Carey Mulligan, written and directed by Bradley Cooper, also written by Josh Singer, who wrote Spotlight, The Post, and First Man. This is gonna be an interesting one to talk about. I'm very curious what your thoughts are on this movie.
Well, it's funny because I read a headline this morning, and I think this is a good tease for what's to come when we later talk about this movie. And the question was: is Maestro Oscar bait or a cinematic masterpiece? And I think that's a good tease, good headline that made me click into it. So hopefully that makes you want to listen to the rest of this episode, or a good time as a good reminder that we do have timestamps in the description. So I know for a fact it's been roughly 3 weeks since we've done news and about 2 weeks since we've done our last episode. And so I think it's safe to say this is going to be a jam-packed episode with a lot of news. We got a lot to cover on the news front. We haven't seen each other since over the holiday break, so we have a lot that we got to talk about, things we've seen. It's going to be a big one. So if you want to skip ahead, be sure to look at the timestamps. It's in the description. We don't know how long this episode is going to be, but by the time you're listening, you definitely do. So go to the timestamps if you want to skip around. But with that, I am also excited to talk about Maestro with you because I honestly don't know where you're going to land on it. I really don't know.
I'm leaving it vague because I figured you wouldn't know. So
I don't know which way you're going with it, but rest assured we're going to be talking about Maestro and also his Oscars potential, because I know it's going to be up there for sure.
Definitely.
Later in the podcast. But of course, before we do that, we're going to be diving into what we've been watching. But before we do that, we have our entertainment news, and it's been a minute. And the first piece of news we're going to talk about today is nothing that should come to a surprise to anyone who has been listening to this podcast or have been aware of it, but Marvel Studios has officially fired Kang the Conqueror actor Jonathan Majors following his guilty verdict for harassment and assault from his recent criminal trial. The news broke mere hours after a Manhattan jury found Majors guilty of both harassment and reckless assault in the third degree in relation to an altercation with his ex-partner. He was found not guilty, however, on 2 other charges in the case: intentional assault in the third degree, as well as aggravated harassment in the second degree. Sentencing is scheduled to take place on February 6, 2024, and Majors could face up to a year in jail for these charges. It's unclear at this point if Major's role of Kang the Conqueror, as well as his subsequent variants across the Marvel Universe, will be recast, or if Marvel will pivot away from the character entirely. So again, Ernesto, I think it's easy to say that this wasn't a surprise when I read this headline.
Not even in the slightest. But I guess now it's just answering that question. What are they going to do? I honestly, I think, and now we haven't finished Loki yet, but from what I hear, that it's probably better to just close that door and just pivot in a whole other direction. Let's just go to another villain. Yeah, I guess, MCU's gonna kind of miss out on that one. It's almost bad because if they hadn't announced their slate so far in advance,
so true,
we would have just thought, oh, Kang is like, if they hadn't announced it all, then none of this would even be news because nobody would know because then we wouldn't have, we wouldn't know what the next Avengers movie would be. But because now we're in the habit of knowing all information pretty much whenever it's readily available, so to get people excited for it, it just seemed like they kind of shot themselves in the foot on that one because literally all this news could have been avoided. So maybe they don't need to tell us as much. Like, it's okay to have an air of mystery, and that almost makes it more enjoyable because then it gives us and fans time to wrongly speculate, and then it gives them time to adjust in case shit like this happens. Because then they could have just said, "Oh well, he wasn't going to come back after Loki anyway. Loki was the end of his arc."
Yeah, and it's crazy to think. I mean, you're absolutely right that, and it's funny because I want to go back to. I'm going to pivot the conversation just slightly on Disney parks and theme parks in general.
Okay.
And I think this is a good comparison. Disney had announced Tron was coming out in roughly, I think it was 2019 or 2018, or I would even say 2017. Somewhere around those lines, within those 2 years.
Yeah.
They announced, I want to say it was 2017 that they announced that Tron was going to be at Magic Kingdom. And then it took them 5 years to get that off the ground. Now, going back to Universal, on the sense, they had a coaster called Velocicoaster. We knew that something was going to be there. We also knew that track was being laid out. We also knew that something was going to be in the Jurassic Park area, and Universal said not a damn thing.
Yeah.
We knew a coaster was coming. We knew something big was coming, but they didn't announce it. And it was so funny because eventually the theme park community started calling it a churro stand. So much so that when they finally have made the official announcement that it's going to be a Velocicoaster, and then it opened 2 years ago, and they made that announcement 5 months roughly before the track was already done. They made the announcement that about 5 months before it opened to get all that buzz, and then so much so that the CEO at the time was handing out churros to guests to be in on the joke. So with all of that, which approach is better? Letting the people know ahead of time what your plan is so they can be excited about it, or just be like, I don't know what's going on. You might know, but I'm not going to say anything. And then eventually when it's time, you'll know when it's more concrete.
Yeah.
Because what Marvel did was, hey, we're going to let you know that Kang is going to be the big bad. We kind of teased it with Thanos in phase 1, 2, and 3, but with Kang, we're telling you in the forefront that he's going to be the big bad, and he's going to be spanning through multiple movies, and here's his start. And then look what happened. I think this is a good lesson for Marvel to be like, shit happens. This was not a scenario for Marvel because you put all your eggs in one basket. That one actor is going to lead multiple films, and guess what? Now he led one film. He was kind of halfway in a TV series, and that's it. Now, fortunately for them, we did not get too far. It could have been a lot worse for what Marvel has to do.
If this if this had come out now, okay, do you think what has happened in his life affected the end of Loki? Since I haven't seen it, so I'm trying to be very vague.
That's a good question because I don't know. From my understanding, before all the trial stuff was happening, the ending of Loki was already cemented.
Okay.
So, it could have changed, but based on where I'm sitting, it didn't look like they changed much to kind of put a little bow on the Kang scenario.
Yeah.
Like I've stated before, they have a stopping point. This is a good time, and I think the public understands that if we no longer see Kang anymore, we know why.
Okay. Well then, I mean, it's fine. It would have been. This is just the Jonathan Majors now is just an example of don't count your chickens before they hatch. Like maybe like you don't need. Maybe there's a middle ground of information. Maybe there's some shit you can just hold to your chest. And now, but I think they saw him as a main thing. I mean, but look how long Josh Brolin was cemented as Thanos.
Yeah, I mean, it was about roughly 3 years or so. So I think they were going to use the same.
Think about between Iron Man, because even at the end of Iron Man, at the was that post credit scene, or is that the next one?
No, it was the end of the Avengers. It was the end of the Avengers, but actually, I'm reading a book right now called the MCU, The Reign of Marvel Studios. I'm 10 hours of a 17-hour book.
That's pretty good, actually.
So, yeah, we're trucking along on that. But they did mention that Joss Whedon kind of just put that tag in there just for deep cuts for the fans. So when Thanos turned around at the end of Avengers, it was just a deep cut. He did not plan it and for it to be a big thing, and Marvel took his idea and ran with it.
See, but that's what, and I think that's what we need more of in comic book movies. Tell your story, but then, as an added bonus, here's a small thing that ties into the larger story. We just need to get back to that. Like, if you look, I was actually watching a video like a couple weeks ago, or like last week, and this guy was just talking about like where, kind of giving a basic understanding of where Marvel went wrong. It's like they kept copying, they're known for copying the formula, but I think they were copying, he was saying they copied the wrong part of the formula. Like they copied the spectacle as opposed to copying the human story. Like when you look at Iron Man, he doesn't spend 90% of the movie in the suit. No, it's a story. It's a story about a man coming to terms about the weapons of mass destruction he made and what his response to that is in trying to rectify those mistakes. And then it just happens to be that story is the story of Iron Man. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and it's hard to like go back to that because you gave us Endgame.
True.
So like I think Marvel in a way is trying to match that spectacle, but I think to your point, you got to earn that back again.
Correct.
You earn the audience's respect and time and money and to invest in all these movies to give us Endgame. Now you reach such a high that's unprecedented to a lot of movies you would watch and even TV shows. You gave us such a wonderful finale. It's almost like here's the ending of a perfect show, but then you decided to give us more. And like, well, you can't top that. I mean, actually, a perfect example is Toy Story. Yeah. You gave us Toy 1, 2.
You're gonna get me started again.
I know, but it's a good example. You gave us a perfect trilogy of 1, 2, and 3. Why'd you move on? And so we all knew
and they still are,
Marvel was gonna, and they still moving on. We're getting a Toy Story 5. But I think it was inevitable that Marvel was going to continue, but I think you had to start back from the basics, and I think they tried to do that in a way, get more grounded, but then you have to focus on the spectacle. Not all the stuff after Endgame is bad. At least going back to Kang and Jonathan Majors, I think to a benefit of maybe no longer seeing this character is that Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania was not a good movie.
No.
So
and he was the best thing about that movie, and even that was lackluster. Like it was just enough to make the movie barely watchable.
Mm-hmm. And to your point, yeah. So I think with a combination of his actions and the movie not being good, again, we're all in a good recipe to be like, okay, we tried something, didn't work. We're gonna move on now. Like, let's just do a little hop. And it looks like Marvel's doing some restructuring back there, and we've seen it and we've talked about it already. And so hopefully we can continue to move forward. I think Marvel's next big announcement should hopefully, the next time we hear from Marvel, I better see the tagline. We now have the actors for the Fantastic Four.
Yeah,
that's what I'm looking for, because that will get people excited again. Well, depending on who you pick anyway. But that's something to get excited about. You know, Deadpool's your next movie. Talk about Deadpool. You got to get the fans back. You got to give, you have a pivot. You have an opportunity that with Deadpool 3 being your only movie out in 2024, you have time to rewrite and restructure on what you want the future of the MCU is going to be.
And I think we see that. I think we've seen that with how Deadpool 3. Is it only Deadpool 3 for 2024 that's coming out?
Yep.
I mean, we have Echo that's coming out soon as a TV series. But
correct.
As far as films, we're only getting Deadpool 3. I think that is the key. Like, we don't need as much. Give it space to breathe. Like, let Deadpool 3 settle for a little bit before you just bombard us whatever the next thing is. Either way, I think this news is, I mean, we already knew. We knew this was coming. Like,
this isn't a surprise. This is just now a confirmation of something that we already knew that was basically going to happen. Whether that if that verdict was not guilty on all counts, I didn't see an avenue where Marvel could move forward with him. I really couldn't.
If they had continued, it would have been. I think that would have been like the nail in the coffin for them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So.
Oh, there we go. Moving on. We got director Christopher Landon, A Happy Death Day and Freaky, announced that he is departing Scream 7. Landon took to social media to say, "I guess now's a good time as any to announce I formally exited Scream 7 weeks ago. This will disappoint some and delight others." What a weird sentence.
Actually, like, I have something to say about that, but I'll let you finish. But I think I know where he's getting at.
It was a dream job that turned into a nightmare, and my heart did break for everyone involved. Everyone. But it's time to move on. I have nothing more to add to the conversation other than I hope Wes's legacy thrives. What he and Kevin created is something amazing, and I was honored to have even the briefest moment basking in their glow. Spyglass Media and Paramount Pictures are now in search for a new director. This comes news after the firing of Melissa Barrera and the exit of co-star Jenna Ortega. This is becoming a clusterfuck, and I think we kind of realized that after, like, once she left, and then Jenna Ortega just, I left weeks ago. It just like okay. So I wonder if they're even going to move forward at this point, or if they might just scrap it all together. I guess maybe one final Hail Mary. Let's try to find one more director.
It's rough for Scream 7. And I guess in a way that we did have a stopping point with Scream 6. I know they want to move forward with it very quickly, but first, they lost the original directors to an unnamed project for Universal, and then they hired him. And I think I know what he means by this will. What did he say? This will
disappoint some and delight others.
And I kind of get what he's saying, because I'm sure not a lot of people are a fan of the style of horror comedy that he delivers with Happy Death Day and Freaky. It's definitely an acquired taste. I'm not saying they're not entertaining, but I don't think they're at the caliber of Scream 7 the Scream franchise, I should say. So for me, I was a little bit skeptical with the hiring of Christopher Landon. I was willing, I didn't really have a choice, but I was optimistic on maybe this is something different that he can offer to the franchise. But at the same time, the initial headline, I was like, we can pick somebody else, I guess.
I mean, we could do something else.
Honestly, I think it's Lee Whannell who did The Invisible Man. I would love to see him tackle the Scream franchise.
That's a good choice, man. I like that.
Yeah, Paramount, listen up.
They're not listening.
They're not listening. But I think he would be a great choice to tackle the Scream franchise. They have a lot to do. They have a lot to rework. And I wonder if the firing of Melissa Barrera and the exit of the co-star Jenna Ortega, I wonder if he left shortly after that.
I'm sure.
Like, he said he left weeks ago. So maybe with all that drama that was stirring, it probably created a hostile environment, maybe a more stressful one than what they were planning, a whole rewrite on the script that he wasn't prepared to endure. And therefore, he's like, you know what? And because he said he exited. He said, I wasn't fired. I left.
Yeah.
So
like, I don't think I can do
you don't
this.
blame him.
Like, or maybe he saw what they were going to do and go, yeah, that I'm not doing that. I don't want to. I don't want none of that. Which is, you know what? That's fine because
it's fair. Fair.
At least you know. Like, don't try to push through something that your heart's not in. Rather, give this project up to somebody else. And maybe maybe what if everything being pushed back messed up some other project that he had planned to work on immediately after this.
Right. And I think also you don't want to be attached to. You don't want to be the director to be the one to be like, this movie sucked.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, you don't want to put out a bad product, and I respect him for leaving when, like, knowing when to leave. It's like, hey, this isn't for me. I'm very interested to see the next steps for Screen 7. I think this is going to further delay the film. I think it was already delayed 2025. Who knows if it's going to be pushed back to later 25 or even 26 at this point. It's a big blow for the Scream franchise for sure. It's unfortunate. But maybe something good can come out of this. I don't know. We'll have to wait and see on that.
Yeah, and I don't see anything. The only thing he has upcoming, he has a producer credit on a film called Time Cut. But other than that, I don't see anything. That's it. That's the only thing he has upcoming. So.
Okay, so he might have cleared his schedule for this. Who knows?
Back on the market.
But yeah, seriously, and I mean, this franchise, and within the last month, December was not a good. Like, Scream, the Ghostface was just slashing people left and right. We're talking. I mean, we see him slashing people on Scream, but now he's doing it off the screen as well. So I don't know. I mean, I think the only people that are staying were the writers. Who were originally attached to it. So
currently on let's see, on their
I think we had briefly talked about that it was maybe the same writers. I don't know if they
have this says that they have that the writer is now the director. This is not. Oh, that's maybe
it's temporarily.
It's all rumors. It's a bunch of rumors. There's nothing. They have nothing.
Yeah, I don't see. Yeah, I see no writers attached to this movie now. So yeah, either way, I mean, we talked about this with the actors leaving. If they can get back Nev Campbell and who's the other one? Courtney Cox. Then maybe we can start getting some fuel into this again. But for the meantime, I wish you the very luck, Screen 7. I love this franchise, and I hate to see it go out like this. But, it is what it is, I guess, in some points. But I'm rooting for you. I want to come back and say, hey, we found a director. We got some actors. We're moving forward. Now, hopefully, for a good movie.
We'll be here on the other side to see what comes of it. That's for sure.
That's for sure. So moving on from that, let's talk about James Gunn. Took to social media to officially announce and confirm, which is the most important part here, that Nicholas Hoult has been cast to play the villain Lex Luthor in the upcoming Superman Legacy film. Gunn said in a social media post, in part, yes, I can finally answer. Nicholas Hoult is Lex Luthor in Superman Legacy, and I couldn't be happier. And I love this part. He says, but James, we heard this weeks ago. Why didn't you tell us it was true? And he responds, because although we were discussing it, it wasn't final until a couple of days ago, and I don't want to tell you all something that isn't certain. As we've stated before, Superman Legacy hits theaters July 11th, 2025.
This is fantastic news. Nicholas Hoult is a great actor. And I know it's not going to be similar at all, but like that kind of rich billionaire, he always I feel like he can fit into that role very well. It kind of very vaguely reminds me of like the role he played in The Menu. Do you ever see that weird movie?
Yes, he was very like a pretentious asshole. Very what's the word? privileged in some way. Like he was a know-it-all when he really was.
Also, he seems like he can pull off the bald Lex Luthor. Like I see it. Like I can definitely
Yeah,
see.
I can.
And he comes off as a young Lex Luthor, which I think is important.
Yeah, and also, I mean, he was basically a rich asshole in The Great, the TV series he did for 3 seasons on Hulu. I watched the first season and a little bit of part 2 before we kind of fell off and stopped watching it, but he was great in it, so I know he can play a villain really well. And so, like, he has that gravitas. When I first heard these rumors that he was Lex Luthor, I was like, yeah, no, I can see it, and I was hoping it was true. And as we can see here, James Gunn officially took it. And also, I heard about this rumor weeks ago, but and we're kind of just paying respects to James Gunn here. I didn't hear from him, and therefore we're not talking about it until we officially confirmed it. And I liked what he said in his social media post being like, hey, we heard this weeks ago, you didn't say anything. It's like, well, I wasn't certain yet. It's pretty blatant, and I can't help but to respect that, and he's respecting the audience, and therefore he's earning for him.
Well, also this notion of that you have to be first is just dumb. Like, why does the news have to be first? Doesn't it matter if it's right? I mean, we live in an age of social media where any news can be posted and then immediately be updated or retracted. Like
right.
It's
absolutely.
not like you have to wait till tomorrow's paper to get the next set of news out. Like information is so instantaneous. Like, so it almost doesn't matter if you're first. It just matters if you're right. Like take the 10 seconds and just wait till you get an official announcement. Like it's okay.
And it was crazy because when the news broke that that Nicholas Hoult was playing Lex Luthor, I saw it on like Variety, I saw it on Deadline, I saw it on Hollywood Reporter. I'm like, okay, first place I went to was James Gunn. Didn't see a word. I was like, all right, then that's speculative at this point because he said that he'll let us know. And give it like a week and a half later, he came out and said something. And so there you go. Now now it's worth the wait, and I can officially be excited for it. And I think he'll be a great Lex Luthor. I think the cast that he's been announcing so far is just sparking a lot of excitement for this movie.
Absolutely. Well, we have some. Speaking of speculative. You know what the word is.
Yeah.
Speculation. We have some speculation news, or speculative news. Warner Brothers Discovery CEO David Zaslav met with Paramount CEO Bob Bakish to discuss a potential deal to consolidate the two industry giants. The duo discussed ways their companies could complement one another with interest in each other's main streaming service, Paramount and Max, potentially merging to better rival Netflix and Disney+. It's unclear whether WB Discovery would buy Paramount Global or its parent company National Amusements Inc., but a source familiar with the situation says that both options are on the table. If a deal were to happen, WB Discovery would acquire top-tier properties from Paramount Pictures, including such film franchises as Star Trek, Terminator, Transformers, Mission Impossible, Top Gun, A Quiet Place, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, The Godfather, and Scream. Since WB Discovery doesn't own a broadcast network, it would also require networks as CBS, Comedy Central, MTV, Nickelodeon, and BET. This merger would be crazy. That would be I mean, what's going to be next? Apple's going to buy Disney?
I mean, don't joke about that.
I know that that's like a big industry rumor. Like, eventually, when is Apple going to buy Disney? Because I mean, Apple makes products. They don't need their streaming service. It's reason they're slowly starting to raise their prices for their streaming services, but it's very clear that this is just something that they do. Very similar to Prime. Like, they already do so many other things that this is just an added thing.
Absolutely. And I'm going to be honest with you, I don't like any of this.
Why? Is it too much?
I do not
think it's too much.
I think it's too much. 100%. Like, when we lost 20th Century Fox and all of those things. Now, and I think it's a double-edged sword here, because granted, a lot of people lost jobs because a whole company has basically been absorbed.
Correct.
We lost animation studios because Disney already had 2. They had Disney Animation and they had Pixar. They didn't need Blue Sky, so that just got all the way, dissolved. So, more animated content has just been completely gone. Like that Blue Sky gave us Ice Age.
True.
And other movies I don't remember. It's like so far, I think actually Robots is another one, if that's a big one. But either way, Ice Age was their biggest property for sure. But like what I think I'm more skeptical about is that we're losing more options to be creative. There are movies and shows that are happening right now that if you dissolve it, they're going to be like, for the example, we already have an animation studio. We don't need 3, so you're gone. We already have a whatever division. We don't need that anymore. And they're going to have a lot of people lose jobs. And so, like, especially with a big company like Paramount to be dissolved like that, I'm not saying that, it's just one less person in the playing field. So then for them, for the future, it's just Disney making movies, Universal making movies, and Warner Brothers making movies, and that's it. And then we have this few indies in the mix there, like the big boys buying the smaller independent movies. I can get behind more because maybe they, just like Marvel Studios, they're given resources, say from Disney, to make their product better if they don't touch it, for example, that made a product great in the first place. But yeah, I'm 50-50 on it, because do we need more streaming services? Sure, I would love that Paramount Plus and Max just be one big old thing and I don't have to worry about it. But like, it's small wins. I think Warner Brothers Discovery has a lot to gain here, and I think part of the merger is that Paramount is in debt right now, and Warner Brothers was also in debt. And so Discovery was able to pull Warner Brothers out of worse debt. I think it's still in debt, but it's not as bad as it used to be. And so now maybe with the merger that Discovery can do the same for Paramount and also own all of its big IPs. And my opinion, even though that Warner Brothers has Harry Potter and DC and Lord of the Rings, for example, Paramount has a lot of great IPs to choose from to potentially make them better if they're given more resources.
True.
But also with that, I'm not a fan of how Discovery has been treating Warner Brothers lately with some of their movie choices and TV choices. And I really like what Paramount's been doing with their streaming service. I have not been a fan of late of what Discovery has been doing with Max. But I do like what Paramount has been doing with Paramount Plus, especially with their live programming. I can go in there and watch a football game and I don't have to worry about anything else. If it's on CBS, I can watch it on Paramount Plus. It's simple as that. It's not like, well, it's under Fox, so I need to pay. It's like, no. Look, if we own a network, it's on our streaming services. Here you go. That's it. And Discovery has not been as friendly with that. They also don't own a power. Them owning a network is huge if they can own CBS as well. So I know I kind of said a lot, but I don't want it to happen. I would much prefer if Apple was to buy Paramount. That's a way better version of this story to happen. Like, I'm not opposed to Paramount being, but not by Warner Brothers.
Yeah. It just seems like since both of them are in trouble, it's like, let's just help each other out.
Yeah.
Like
that's what it seems like.
But yeah, I mean, it'll be interesting. We'll see what comes of it. It's kind of still speculative right now.
It is.
They're talking about it, but it's a very open conversation. Like, it's a very public and open conversation.
Yeah, and we say speculative. One thing for certain, that the two CEOs did have a conversation. They were meeting.
For that.
And then now for this, like, that was certain. Now the speculative part of what exactly were they talking about? But insiders say that this is what they're talking, a potential merger, which honestly, it's a fair assumption, because why else would they be talking?
Yeah, exactly.
Big studio giants like this. But yeah, obviously we'll keep you guys updated on what happens here. But I need to see more reasons why I want to be excited for this, because of right now, I'm not. Like, for me, when Disney bought Fox, I was very much excited, because I'm like, X-Men, Fantastic Four, in the house of Marvel, we're good.
Let's go.
We're happy. Let's go. This one, I was like, okay, so Harry Potter can mix in with Mission Impossible. All right. I don't need that.
I don't know who asked for that.
Harry Potter and Star Trek. Woo!
All right.
Yeah, no, we don't need that. But either way, we'll keep you guys updated with this, whatever happens with this. But it's interesting, to say the least. So with all of that news, let's dive into some awards talk. The Critics' Choice Association has officially announced the film nominations for the 29th Annual Critics Awards. 2 episodes ago, we briefly went over some of the TV nominations that were announced first, and now we're going to do the same for the film nominations. Barbie led with 18 nominations, which is incredible and crazy at the same time, followed by Oppenheimer and Poor Things, who each got 13 nominations. The 29th Annual Critics' Choice Awards will air live on the CW on Saturday, January 14th, 2024, so just a few weeks away. We're going to talk about the Best Picture nominees first, which are American Fiction, Barbie, The Color Purple, The Holdovers, Killers of the Flower Moon, Maestro, Oppenheimer, Past Lives, Poor Things, and Saltburn. A lot of these movies we've already talked about. I think one of the movies that I'm interested, it kind of puts a leg up on it, is The Color Purple is up there.
It's getting a lot of buzz lately.
Mm-hmm. And it's one of the few musicals that are actually breaking through. Obviously, the subject matter definitely helps it as well, being from a popular film and stage play, and now they're recreating the musical. And I'm happy to see The Color Purple on there. I haven't seen the film personally, but I've heard a lot of great things about it. A lot of positive buzz is surrounding it. Saltburn is a surprise one. It's been talked about in the awards conversation, but is not making any headway. So the fact that this one is nominated for Best Picture does give it some legs in the Oscar race. And all the other films have basically is what we expected. Yeah. And at least that's what's been highly talked about. Through I think, did I not send you? That might be the wrong graphic. That's for the Golden Globes.
Oh,
did I not send you the Critics' Choice? If not, then we'll just leave it on the Golden Globes.
Yeah. I must have, unless I grabbed the wrong. I might have grabbed the wrong one.
It's all right. Either way, good. You guys can peruse through the Golden Globe nominations on YouTube. We'll get to that one in a second. But yeah, none of this is really surprising with the Critics' Choice. The one that I do want to talk about, however, is Best Animated Film, because I think these are what's going to be in the high contenders that a lot of people are talking about to be in the Oscar conversation, which are The Boy and the Heron, Elemental, Nimona, Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, Mutant Mayhem, and Wish. I think for most of these movies, Ernesto, we can say that these have all have some legs to stand on, and would be perfectly fine if they were nominated for Best Animated Feature.
Oh, absolutely. I think Nimona is the only one. I don't think I've even heard of that one before. It's the only one that.
It's on Netflix. I'm going to be talking about it later.
Okay.
In Whatcha Watchin, and I just as a brief tease, I think it's worth the watch. I really enjoyed it.
Okay.
Something a little bit different that we haven't seen in animation before, as well as its storytelling. Definitely has some legs there as well. These are the movies that are being talked about for Best Animated Feature, and I can see, for the most part, why every one of those are on there for various different reasons. But yeah, the Critics' Choice Awards is going to be on January 14th. We're going to be going over most of the winners when they are announced.
And now we're going to actually talk about the nominations for the 81st Golden Globes. They've officially been announced. Barbie led among the films with 9 nominations, followed by Oppenheimer with 8. Killers of the Flower Moon and Poor Things earned 7 nominations. In TV, Succession scored the most nominations with 9 total, followed by The Bear and Only Murders in the Building, both with only 5 nods. This year's show nominations also included 2 newly added awards, including Cinematic and Box Office Achievement and Best Stand-Up Comedian on TV. The live presentation of the Golden Globes will air January 7th on CBS and stream on Paramount Plus. Here are some of the big nominations.
And this is what I'm talking about briefly going before we talk about the nominations. Like CBS, it's on CBS. You can stream it on Paramount Plus. Boom, boom, check. I know where to go. No questions asked. I love that. But anyway, let's go over the best motion picture drama for the Golden Globes. We have Oppenheimer, Killers of the Flower Moon, Maestro, Past Lives, The Zone of Interest, and Anatomy of a Fall. We've seen almost all of these movies.
Except for The Zone of Interest. That's the only one I haven't seen.
Yeah, that is an international film and is being highly regarded as one of the top contenders for Best Animated Film, even going all the way saying it could be Best Picture nominated. It's not available yet. It's from A24, so we have to wait patiently for it to be in theaters at some point. But yeah, I think, again, these movies we're going to be discussing and talking about, and not really much of a surprise about any one of these.
So Best Musical or Comedy for Best Picture, we have Barbie, Poor Things, American Fiction, The Holdovers, May December. Is that a comedy? I don't know if I would necessarily. I don't know if I would classify that as a comedy.
I would say it's a comedy.
And Air, and even Air's. I wouldn't. I guess you could see it as. I guess I could see Air as a comedy.
It's light. It's lightish.
Lightish.
I'm happy to see Air on here because this movie came out in like March. And so I'm happy that it's still in the conversation many months later. And I thought it was a great movie. We highly talked about it. And so I'm happy to see that among all the big players here, that Air is getting some love. Yeah, absolutely. For the biggest bullshit award, the cinematic and box office achievement. I hate this so much.
So do I.
Because I don't know what your merits are. What is your reasoning behind it? Because each one of these movies I'm about to list have its own box office achievement. Not one are the same. So what merits are you going off of to determine whether or not this movie is deemed as a cinematic and or box office achievement? But the nominees are Barbie, Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3, John Wick Chapter 4, Mission Impossible, Dead Reckoning Part 1, Oppenheimer, Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse, the Super Mario Bros. Movie, Taylor Swift, The Eras Tour.
Sure.
It's like, okay, if I'm going to put any reasoning behind any of this, each one of them has its own reason why it's a cinematic or box office achievement.
Yeah.
We have Spider-Man for its impeccable animation. We have Barbie for its being the biggest and most successful movie of the year. For Oppenheimer for doing just the same, just on a rated R level. We have Guardians, which is his own feat as far as like capping off a story-wise. John Wick and Mission Impossible pretty much doing the same for stunt work. We have Super Mario Bros. For being also successful.
Animated.
And and animated as well. And Taylor Swift for changing the game when it comes to concert films and what she did for cinema in the time where no one was going to the movies. So like,
yeah.
You know what I mean? It's like I can see the reason here, but like what are we basing it off of? I just listed you 5 different reasons why they were a box office achievement. What's the one you're gonna say like we're gonna
which one's better
think of that over the rest?
Yeah, it's like right. Almost not comparable at all. Yeah, I agree with you.
It's not.
It's dumb. So, moving on. Best TV series for drama. 1923 on Paramount Plus, The Crown on Netflix, The Diplomat on Netflix, The Last of Us on HBO, The Morning Show on Apple TV, and Succession on HBO. Solid list.
Yeah, solid list. Either I've heard about it or I've seen it myself, and I can say like they hold some weight.
Correct.
For sure. Best TV series, musical or comedy, we have The Bear, Ted Lasso, Abbott Elementary, Jury Duty, Only Murderers in the Building, and Barry. Same thing.
Yeah.
All of these I've seen or highly heard about. I think I've seen almost all of them.
You have, haven't you?
I've seen The Bear. I've seen Ted Lasso. I'm caught up with Abbott Elementary. I've seen Jury Duty. I've seen all of Barry, and I'm just not caught up with Only Murders in the Building. So yeah, I've seen most of them.
Nice.
And yeah, they're all good.
So best limited series, anthology, or motion picture made for TV. We have Beef, Lessons in Chemistry, Daisy Jones and the Six, All the Light We Cannot See, Fellow Travelers, and Fargo. I think I've only seen Beef is the only one I've seen on this list.
Same, but I've heard a lot of good things about All the Light We Cannot See. I think it's from who's the director's name? It's like a 3-part series. It's a quick mini series. All the light. I think it's from the. What is his name? Sean Levy. Yeah, he's the director of
It's on Netflix.
It's on Netflix. Yeah, it's on Netflix. It's about survivors during World War II, and shot all the episodes. And now he's on his way to direct Deadpool 3. He was also director of Free Guy and The Atom Project. So, yeah. This is a big pivot from what he's been doing recently, and he's also responsible for a lot of Stranger Things episodes as well. So, for me, it was like 4 episodes, an hour each. That's something I can commit to for sure. So I might actually give that a watch. Maybe not before the Golden Globes, but I'm interested for sure. But yeah, those are just a brief overview of the Golden Globe nominations. Again, they're going to be streaming live on Paramount Plus or airing on CBS on January 7th. So the Golden Globes is first, and then a week later we have the Critics' Choice. And I think once those awards are out, that's when we start seeing a clearer picture of the nominations for the Oscars, the potential winners, the front runners. A lot of that's going to come together in a nice little bow for us to talk about. So looking forward to that. And last but certainly not least, the Library of Congress has announced the annual selection of 25 influential motion pictures to be inducted into the National Film Registry of the Library of Congress. It's been a story we've been talking about for the last couple of years now. I think it's a fun story to talk about, to see what movies are now being cemented in the Library of Congress. This year, inductees include Lady and the Tramp from 1955, Fame from 1980, Home Alone from 1990, Terminator 2 Judgment Day 1991, The Nightmare Before Christmas 1993, Apollo 13 1995, Bamboozled 2000, Love and Basketball also in the year 2000, and 12 Years a Slave from 2013, among others. The films are selected each year for their cultural, historical, and aesthetic importance to preserve the nation's film heritage. The newest selections include a diverse group of films, filmmakers, and Hollywood landmarks exploring the drama of history, social justice, reform, the experiences of immigrants, and more.
Yeah, I mean, solid list. I mean, just off of this list alone, during our Christmas viewing, we watched Home Alone. We watched that twice. We watched The Nightmare Before Christmas a few times. It was funny. I think my dad has never seen it, and he goes, "This is a Christmas movie." He goes, "This is scary." I said, "Well, it's technically both. It's a Halloween and a Christmas movie."
It's in the title, Dad. Nightmare Before Christmas. Yeah. So you watch The Nightmare, and then you watch it before Christmas, and then now you watch it during Christmas.
And it's weird because my daughter and my youngest son, they love that movie. We went to the Christmas party at work, and they had a face painter there, and she was picking, and one of them was Jack Skellington in the Santa Claus outfit, and she picked it, and the artist goes, "Really?" It's like, yes.
All right.
She loves Nightmare Before Christmas. They call it Jack Skellington. I think it's just because of the music. They like to sing along.
It's a good musical. A lot of people forget. I mean, maybe not Disney won't let you forget now, but it's a Disney movie.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And it's funny that you mentioned Home Alone. Megan and I had one of our Christmas watches we watched Home Alone 1 and 2 this year, and I think because we had a great conversation about Home Alone and like how that would work today and all this stuff, and I don't think I convinced her, but I said that Home Alone 2 was better for multiple reasons, and I think I got her understanding. I didn't get her vote though, but I love the second one. We watched it again this year, and I was like, yeah, no, it's so much better than the first one. Rotten Tomatoes is wrong. I think they gave it like a rotten score, and I was like, no, you're wrong. And I think there's so much more to play with Home Alone 2. But regardless, back to the news story, makes complete sense why it's now cemented in history. It's beloved by many every holiday season. The same goes for Nightmare Before Christmas. Nightmare Before Christmas double dips, however, because it gets you from September all the way to December.
That's right. But that's what makes it so great.
That's what makes it so great. And also, Terminator 2 was ahead of its time, and so that makes complete sense. And obviously, we have Apollo 13 and 12 Years a Slave being, great films depicting parts of history, and makes a lot of sense there too.
Yeah.
So there you go. That's all the entertainment news we have for you guys this week. As always, you can go to our social media channels on Facebook and on Instagram and Threads at @boxoffice_bingers, and our Facebook page at Box Office Bingers for all the latest and breaking news. You can find them over there first, and then we'll come back in the show and we'll talk about it. So with that, we're going to be diving into a fun segment we like to call What You're Watching. I know we've had a lot to discuss over the holiday break. So Ernesto, what have you been watching?
Well, Matthew, I finally finished Gen V.
Oh, here we go.
Oh, that last episode was batshit crazy.
Yes.
I mean, what's crazy is that, they give you the disclaimer at the beginning of the episode letting you know that, hey, this is going to be reminiscent. Spoiler alert, it's reminiscent to a school shooting. But it's not a school shooting, it's the boys' version of what they try to give you. And I think that the way that they handled it very well. I mean, and man, just the way they were ripping each other apart it was just in typical boys fashion. I love that at the end we get a little bit of Homelander, but we got just enough to get a point. And I think the series works great because you don't need to watch The Boys to enjoy Gen V. So I'm curious.
Absolutely
I
not.
wonder if The Boys is going to give the same respect to Gen V, whereas you don't need to watch them, but they complement each other.
Yeah, 100%. I loved it.
I think it's great. I think they're really showcasing the character Marie, who's got these crazy blood flowers. I think they're setting up to be the next main big superhero in that universe.
I hope so, and I'm even in favor of crossovers. I mean, we saw characters cross over to Gen V, just to appease some of the fans, have one or two of them even be mentioned in the background, or even cross over, because they talked about being in the 7, a streamline. So that could be something that can be mentioned or even further to go off of in season 4.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it was great. I really enjoyed it. I can't wait to see when The Boys come out. What they got coming out. So kind of moving on to our Christmas viewing. We watched Jim Carrey's How the Grinch Stole Christmas. We watched this movie 2 times because and it's funny because even right before we put it on, different people would say, "Oh, that's the best one. Oh, that's the best one." Because it really is. This movie is just timeless. It's just a timeless classic.
So I have certain things to say about the Grinch, and I feel like it's twofold. One, I work at Universal. We do the Grinch. I see it all the time.
I guess that's true.
I'm over it. I'm over it. It's not a movie that I want to go back and watch because I'm kind of surrounding by it.
I understand.
But I was visiting my parents over the holiday break, and they were just watching TV. I wanted to put something on, scrolling through the channels. They have cable, and I saw the Grinch. I was like, I'm gonna put it on. It's better than the options that I had before. I watched about maybe I would say a third of the movie. It was around the scene where he was contemplating to go to the party or not. That's where it picked up.
That's my favorite scene, when he's going through his schedule.
Yeah,
it's I can't cancel on myself. Or when he's going through the different outfits, he's like, "That's it, I'm not going."
Yeah. That was actually not a bad. I can't do that again. That wasn't bad action. I think Jim Carrey nails it.
Absolutely.
It's been a while since I've seen that movie, and so watching at least as part of it, I was like, man, he should have got awards for this. I don't know if he did or not. I'm gonna go double check, but
even for the costumes and the makeup alone. I mean, I think I looked it up, and it's 92 hours of total time that it took for him. I don't remember exactly, but it's some crazy amount of number every day. I think 2.5 hours every day in the chair for hair and makeup. and they had to hire somebody from the CIA because he had to get because it was like being tortured for wearing that makeup for that amount of time for all day.
Wow. I do know that the behind the scenes is something very interesting. I want to look into it because it has some horror stories behind it. And it was not good for Jim Carrey as far as his mental health, from my understanding. But he went to a place that gave us one hell of a performance. I know a lot of actors go to dark places to get, either comedic or these different roles, but on the screen, like, that is Jim Carrey's movie through and through. Talking about the makeup, it did win an Oscar back in 2001 for Best Makeup in a movie. It was also nominated for Best Costume Design and Best Art Direction Set Decoration. I guess that award is no longer given. I think it's now just turned into costume design, or it kind of encompasses all that. But either way, it was nominated for 3, 1 for Best Makeup. Obviously, that makes a lot of sense. I think where I fall, I'm not seeing any nominations for Jim Carrey, which is
crazy.
Crazy. He did he did win. This is funny. This is how dated this is. He did win the Blockbuster Entertainment Award for favorite actor comedy for his role in How the Grinch Stole Christmas. I guess that was his best accolade for the movie, but I understand why it's a classic. I think my biggest problem with the movie is the story. I think it's just a little too wacky for me, and it's just a little weird in some of the scenarios, especially where it gets, like, I wouldn't say raunchy, but I think it pushes the envelope a little bit on certain scenes. Yeah. Maybe that's the point. But like, some of its delivery, I think it's a little bit cringy, but there's no denying that Jim Carrey is the Grinch.
How dare you? But it's okay for you to. It's okay for you to have a wrong opinion.
I feel I saw a lot of people doing marathons of, like, the original animated short and then the live action movie, and then they would watch the animated film with Benedict Cumberbatch.
That one's okay. And
I was like, in my head, it's like, in a row? That's a lot of Grinch in one day. Like, maybe throughout the Christmas season, sure, but not back to back to back. You get the idea. I don't need all that.
You get the gist of the story.
Yeah, absolutely.
So we also watched it's technically a Thanksgiving movie, but it's a holiday movie.
Mm-hmm.
It's John Hughes, Planes, Trains, and Automobiles. I mean, what a classic. This movie's so funny. Like, I forgot how much I love this movie. And you get, like, random cameos. Like, Kevin Bacon makes a random cameo in the beginning of the movie with Steve Martin. I mean, John Candy is just, like, one of my all-time favorite actors. Like, I think he's incredible in everything he's done. I love almost all of his movies. I loved him in Home Alone. I loved him in Cool Runnings. I loved him in this movie.
Oh, Cool Runnings, yes.
I mean, great movie. The funniest scene in this movie, me and my wife were watching it, and there was one point, like, we were laughing so hard that my son came in from his room, from sleeping in the other room, and wanted to see what was happening because we were dying laughing. And it just goes to show, like, how just an expert comedian that Steve Martin is. Like, he's a master at everything he does, and how they both just complement each other. It's like they just set up the scene where, I don't know have you seen them? You've seen the movie, right?
Yeah, I've seen the movie. If you don't say it, I will say my favorite scene, but I want to hear you.
Okay, it's the scene where they're going reverse on the highway.
Oh, okay,
so
okay, yes.
He gets turned around, and they're driving, and Steve Martin's asleep, and he wakes up, and these people on the other side of the road are like, "You're going the wrong way," and they're like making fun of him. They're like, "What are you talking about, drunkie?" And he's like holding up a drink, and then he realizes that they're going the wrong way, and they go in between these two semis, and then it's just like chaos. Like, they're screaming, and then you cut back to them, and, like, one of them's got a skull face, and then you look back and John Candy's the devil. And then they pull over, and Steve Martin's hands are, like, literally stuck to the dashboard, and John Candy bends the steering wheel in half. And then they're laughing about it, and then John Candy lights the car on fire. But it's the way that they set it up, because, like, that would, like him setting the car on fire, and I think it was Steve Martin's wallet in the glove box. Both of those things were just set up prior, but it was just the way that the scene was set up and the way that it was executed. Like, we were dying. Like, I was dead. Even like now, just thinking about that scene, like, it just cracks me up. Which one is yours?
So it's a couple scenes later, but so this is after they hotel and the wallet and all that stuff, and now they're just, I think they've passed the point. Like, they've had a moment in the hotel room where they talk about, like, they say some mean stuff to each other, and then they kind of reconcile. And then there was one point, I think they both have to sleep in the bed, which is another funny scene. And then there is like, what did he say? He's like, hey, I think something is under the bed or something. And he's like, that's not what was it? It's like, hey, is your wallet or something? Is like, that's not my wallet, or that's not the pillow or something.
Oh, they were cuddling.
They were like rubbing. They were cuddling, yes, and then like they quickly jump off the bed, and then he goes, yeah, sports, football.
How about those games?
Yeah. How those games, yeah. Like it was such like a genuine, like they were basically, Steve Martin's so annoyed throughout the whole movie, but you get those moments where like they're both. It's like sometimes you think like John Candy's an idiot, but then they're both just like in that moment they're both on the same page, and it's rare throughout the movie when they are on the same page. But the moment that had me dying was when they get pulled over by the cop in this busted vehicle. It's burned down, and then so like the cop clocks them, and they and then they stop, and it's like, how you doing, officer? How you doing? It's like, do you know why I pulled you over? It's like, I got the darndest that I have no idea why you would do such. I don't know. And then he goes, and he's like, you were speeding. He's like, oh yeah, I can see that. You see, officer, our speedometer is broken. And he's like, and you don't have your headlight, or not headlights, or maybe like your headlight was busted, tailgate. He's like, mirror. He's like, yep, lost those too. And then funny enough, the radio's working. I don't know how the darndest thing is working, but so far we've been cruising down. And the way his delivery on that, it's just like they've been through so much shit at this point. He is happy that the radio is working in the car, and I don't even know how the car is moving at this point. And also when they pull it, like he can't just catch a break. But I was dying in that scene. It was hilarious. It has these such like comedic high moments in this film, and then at the very end, like they were able to wrap it up into like a heartwarming, like holiday movie. And I love it. I think it's if you haven't seen it, for those who haven't seen it, it's a classic. Like, absolutely. I recently just saw this a few years ago for the first time, and I instantly bought it. Like, I have it on my Vudu right now, and I watched it this year closer to Thanksgiving. I like to watch this movie just for the pure spite. It's like it's one of the few Thanksgiving movies out there, and it's good.
But it works as a holiday. You can watch it as a holiday movie. It works for the holiday season because they do. You know, it's the spirit. Like the spirit of the holidays is within the film. It just happens to be centered around Thanksgiving. Yes.
Yeah, it's also going to start because it is around Thanksgiving because the holidays are revving up. So like, you start with this one that's close to Thanksgiving, and then we can get to the rest of them because there's a plethora of Christmas movies. So there's no shortage of those.
Absolutely. And so a random one that we watched is Big Bully. I don't know if you've ever seen it with Rick Moranis and Tom Arnold, where basically when they're kids, Tom Arnold was a bully to Rick Moranis, and then when they grow up, like their kids become the reverse. Rick Moranis' kids becomes a bully, and Tom Arnold's kid becomes the one who gets bullied. And it's kind of this really. I used to really like this movie as a kid, but it's kind of raunchy. Like I was watching it with my boys, and then like Rick Moranis is doing the voiceover of his 10-year-old self, and he's looking at this girl, and I swear this is what he says. He goes, "Man, that girl's she's got the body of a 12-year-old in a 10-year-old body." And I was like, excuse me? It's a child. You are a grown man speaking about a child. I understand. Yes, you're voicing over yourself, but like now, it just I don't know. It just did not land the same.
No, I would agree with you there. Maybe have a kid voice say it, but even that's also questionable.
I think that would have been better. That probably would have been better.
Definitely would have been better. I agree with you there.
Yeah. But it was funny. It was fine. We enjoyed it. And then I also watched, which I'll wait for your Whatcha Watchin. I watched May December, which we were supposed to record about, and Leave the World Behind. But I toss it now to you, sir, before we talk about those.
Okay, fair enough. So yeah, I watched, as you can see here, I'm trying to help you with the graphics, Ernesto.
Yeah, it's all right.
But I watched a couple of movies. I watched a lot of movies during the holiday break. But these three right here are worth mentioning. I'll start from the top right here. Jules, starring Ben Kingsley, and I don't know. It was like 90 minutes of pure wholesomeness. And it's such a simple premise. It's like an alien that crash landed in this guy's yard. And it is a group of elderly people who are just kind of like day to day doing their thing. They're all retired. And they slowly try to help this alien get back home. And it's not really a sci-fi. It just happens to be a movie about an alien trying to get back home. But the main focus is mainly on Ben Kingsley, who's going through Alzheimer's. And they start the movie with him going to like this community hearing about how to improve the community. And like he's in there, he says what he wants to say about the community. And then a few scenes later, they comes back to like maybe another week or another month later, going back to the same hearing and with the community, and he's saying the same thing, and you see the people around him kind of feeling sorry for him, and you can tell he's getting older, and like his best years are behind them, and like then there's like a sense of purpose that he found to help this alien come home. And it's such a weird premise that I didn't think I was gonna like, but it had good reviews, so I wanted to watch it, and it just hit on Paramount Plus. And then I'm watching, it's like, wow, I don't know how it's working, but it's working really well for this, to the point where like at the end of the movie I get a little teary-eyed for Ben Kingsley's character, and like accepting he's getting old and accepting what's the inevitable that's going to happen when you get old. Like his memory is going to start losing, and for him to come to terms for that when he has the memory now, and then later you see him slowly losing it. I don't know. It's very reminiscent of my grandfather, who's also suffering from Alzheimer's right now. So I got a little emotional just seeing that and kind of accepting it. And very similar to when we reviewed and we talked about The Father a few years ago, and going through dementia. It didn't go to this far, this length, but just coming to terms with the inevitable, it was just heartbreaking to see that, but also wrapped around in this very wholesome and also very funny movie as well. So I highly recommend it. It's on Paramount Plus. The other movie that I want to talk about is the movie I kind of mentioned was Nimona. It's animated. I want to read you the byline because I forgot when I watched the trailer what this movie was, and then I'm watching this movie. I'm like, wait, what's going on? What is this? And it's when a knight in a futuristic medieval world is framed for a crime he didn't commit. The only one he could help to prove his innocence is Nimona, a mischievous teen who happens to be a shape-shifting creature he's sworn to destroy. And it's such uniquely animated, and the story is so strong here. I wasn't expecting how mature and strong the story was going to be. Like, our main character is voiced by Riz Ahmed, and he is openly gay. Like, there's no questions about it. They open up the scene with him. Like, they open up the scene with the setting and like this myth and this prophecy within this medieval world, and then you see him openly kiss another man. They didn't draw attention to it. It's just he's in a relationship, and he in the sense in the way that he's not hiding that the fact that he's in a relationship with a man, but he's hiding the relationship because he's in an environment where like they're knights, and so like they don't. it's kind of playing on that idea. Is like other knights are not supposed to be in a relationship, but we are. But to the audience, it's very open about it. And like, there's just a lot of respect with this movie that I'm giving it credit for when it comes to the animation, the strong storytelling, for all the other great animated movies we've seen this year. And I think I've said this before, like with Elemental and Spider-Man, this is a great year for animation, of like taking risks when it comes to animation. I think the only movie that was kind of traditional was the Super Mario Bros. Movie. All the other ones offered something unique to it. I want to kind of go back to what some of the big nominations were for the Golden Globe, for the Critics' Choice. Yeah, The Boy and the Heron, Elemental, Nimona, Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, Mutant Mayhem, and Wish. All gave us unique animation from major studios. And I think we're now at a time where we are respecting the art form that is animation. And giving it proper stories, that these are not just for kids. These are worth getting invested into. Some of the movies, sure, are definitely made for kids. But some of them are like, we're using this avenue to tell these great stories that live action can't provide. And I think this is another great example of it. I was not expecting the story I was getting. And Riz Ahmed and Chloe, I think it's Chloe Marie Gates. She was in Kick-Ass. She was the young girl in Kick-Ass. I forgot her name, but she was a badass in Kick-Ass, and she's a badass in this movie as well. And it's very funny. It's very fast-paced. Chloe Grace Moretz was her name, and yeah, I give it 2 thumbs up. Definitely go watch it for sure. And also the world that it built, this futuristic medieval, like what? Like the world itself is already worth the price of admission. So I definitely recommend watching that. And then Good Burger 2.
I background watched the first half of that because my boys were watching it, but I didn't watch. I didn't pay a lot of attention to it. It didn't seem like it warranted it.
It's so. I think we've talked about this before, of like when you make a sequel to a movie that was many years ago, where do you land on it, especially when it comes to kids material? Like, I love the first movie. I actually rewatched it to watch the second one, and I laughed when I was, it's so nostalgic for me because I grew up watching this movie. So there's always that. So then who is the sequel for? Is it for kids of today, or is it for the now potential parents and older audience who liked it for what it was back then? And they definitely leaned into the kids of today. And that's where not to say that I had a problem with it, but it was like, this is not the movie that was meant for me. This is a good burger for a new generation that had some nostalgic element for the fans, but primarily this movie was meant for a younger audience. And kind of bring back the duo was great. I wasn't a huge fan of the story that they went with, and then they went down like this. I hate this trope. It was like this. They went down to like robots, like running the restaurant. It was very similar. Like Mondo Burger was kind of using technology to improve it, but not robots. And so then we went to the robot angle, and then I was like, all right, I'm kind of checked out now. They also use a classic tropes that they had twins in the movie, and the twins had to say everything at the same time, and that got overdone very quickly. This was very much Kel's story, which I did appreciate. Kenan Thompson already has a lot of success with SNL, and so I think it's nice to kind of put Kenan in the back seat and put Kel in the front seat in this. But I will say the part that made me laugh the most was when we go to Kel's home. Well, first of all, he has kids, which I wasn't expecting, and then he has more kids. And so we first meet his son, who is working at the restaurant, like the original Good Burger. And the part that I did like about the movie, though, was that part of the movie was that Good Burger is so good that they want a franchise, but Kel now owns Good Burger, and he doesn't want to do that. He wants to keep it to the original and like how it is. And like, okay, that part I can respect. But either way, so like we go to his home, and his son's with him, and they're both in the Good Burger outfit, and then his kids come up down the hallway, and they are also all in the Good Burger outfit.
Oh my gosh!
And I just wasn't expecting it. They all had dreads, and they all had
They have the hat.
they're
And they all
all
had the hat.
outfit. The hat, the outfit, the getup, and then he goes, "Yeah, this is my son. Ketchup, mayo, mustard."
And then
It's a stupid bit, but it's hilarious.
And then Roxanne from the first movie was the babysitter. Yeah, I saw that.
There
part.
was the
Yeah.
babysitter. Yeah. But then like you had like moments like the Gronk was in it in a cheap cameo. Like we had like today's it stars that kids will know that made these cameos in it, as well as other cameos from the first movie as well. I think maybe because I'm older and I know more, like maybe some of the cameos at the time didn't hit me as hard from the first movie, but I didn't feel like it was as obvious as it is now. So either way, it's meant for kids, but I'm not going to discourage anyone from watching it. It does have its moments. It's just, I'll go back and watch the first movie again.
Yeah, you can enjoy the first one.
I can enjoy the first one for sure. So next we have a movie that kind of at the time swept the box office for a little bit, got a lot of attention. That's Wonka, from Paul King, starring Timothy Chalamet. And it was silly, it was whimsical, the music was good, not great, but good. But ultimately it was pointless.
Really?
I didn't see any reason why this movie needed to be made.
That's not what I thought was going to come out of your mouth right now. I thought you were going to tell me you love this movie. I'm very surprised.
No, like again, giving it a rating, I'll give it a 3, and I give it the 3 for the set designs and like the whimsical nature of it was good. Then the second star will go to Timothy Chalamet. I thought his performance was really good, and he was backed by a good, energetic supporting cast. And then you had the music with number 3, which was good at times, and other times it wasn't. But at the end of the day, I rewatched Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory before I watched Wonka. It's been a couple of years since I've seen the movie, and I wanted to get a refresher. So I watched it, and then I watched this, and I was like, this movie didn't tell me jack shit that I didn't learn from Willy Wonka.
Now, I'm sorry. Did you watch? Did you watch the Gene Wilder or the Johnny Depp?
Gene Wilder.
Okay.
Yeah, I didn't learn nothing that movie explained. This movie didn't do any of that. It was almost like it took the spirit of what Willy Wonka was to create the Chocolate Factory, but that's it. Like it was weird because it took a moment of like how did Willy become Wonka? I think was their tagline, and I'm still asking that question right now. I don't know. I think we skipped over it, like because then the movie was over, and then it kind of like the movie's over now, and now I see an empty lot, and I'm going to build a chocolate factory. I was like,
what?
And then it's over, and that's it. And I was like, all right. It just seems. Maybe I was expecting something else from the movie, but like I was expecting reason, story. The story was very weak in my opinion, but it was very whimsical. And like if people are looking for a lighthearted musical, this is it. I get it. Like it doesn't necessarily need to connect, but I didn't connect with anything. I guess to go off of that. So. I guess going in there, if you're gonna go watch Wonka, go in there with different expectations. But if you're looking for an expectation that is gonna give you some more backstory on Willy Wonka, you're not gonna get it. This is a story it's a story within this world, because also like Willy Wonka was sometimes really dark and cynical in that movie, and we didn't get any of this in this movie. Like there was no dark part of Wonka in this movie at all. So like I don't know how I would love to have seen how he got from like hopeful to like cynical in some ways. But it was always the hope, the dream that I can have a chocolate factory. That's what the movie was about. The dream that one day I can be the great chocolatier. And that's what you got. And it didn't really offer anything much after that, in my opinion.
Well,
So with that, I'll move over to one of my Christmas movies that I saw. I saw a lot of them. We rewatched like I said, Home Alone 1 and 2. Arthur Christmas is almost a staple that I watch every year. I love Arthur Christmas. It's a great movie. I always like to watch The Polar Express on Christmas Eve because I feel like it's a good leading into Christmas Day. A movie that I hadn't seen in a long time that our party decided to watch, and I now fucking hate this movie, is Christmas Vacation. Like this time around, I'm watching this movie with like a deadpan. The jokes are not funny. Like, I don't know why Griswold is a likable character because he's just an ass the entire time. Like, none of this made me feel jolly or in the Christmas spirit whatsoever. I did not have a good time watching that movie this year, and I'll probably never watch it again at this point.
Does it have anything to do with like Chevy Chase and like everything that's come out since Community? Because I feel like I feel like he just hasn't, ever since that big blowout on that and all the shit that's come out about him. Like it's just it's really never been the same. And I'll be honest, like I like a lot of the National Family Vacation movies, but I have never seen Christmas Vacation.
I mean, I would definitely recommend giving it a watch so you can share my frustration. That's pretty much the only reason why.
That doesn't sound like a valuable use of my time. There's a lot of other shit that's out that I could watch and just enjoy. Nothing about what you just said makes me want to go watch that movie.
The only movie that I actually liked from the Vacations were the first one. Like I like National Lampoon's Vacation, even though I'm not a big fan of the ending when he's literally holding the guy at gunpoint to ride roller coasters. That doesn't sit well with me, and it never has. And I like everything about the movie up until that point. And rewatching Christmas Vacation, because sometimes I'm like, why is this considered a Christmas classic? And maybe to some degree I can understand like the stresses of having the family together, but there are other movies I can watch that have stressful family situations with a better ending and a hopeful feeling at the end. But like, I'm just not a fan of this. But anyway, those are like some of the Christmas movies I was watching. But this one was a new offering, Candy Cane Lane, starring Eddie Murphy. The first Christmas movie from Eddie Murphy. And it was all right.
It was all right.
Yeah. Like, I was actually pretty impressed with the visual effects. They have like this, I don't even know what, like this, I don't know what these are. Like these like, it's a type of thing that you see during the holiday seasons. It's like these figures, but they're made with some sort of specific material that you see all the time. It's not really ceramic, but it's something else. And the animation on these creatures, these people that were like forced by magic to be stuck in these bodies, or these little toys, I should say. That animation was done really, really well, and they creatively told a story within the 12 Days of Christmas as like their hook and moving forward. But the story just kind of fell apart almost every way possible. Eddie Murphy still has it. I think I'll watch anything that Eddie Murphy does, and that was the main reason why I watched it. But the story itself, like, we had magic involved, and like all of a sudden then like Santa showed up, and I was like, you're losing me here, because then he's also trying to figure out like like he's trying to win a contest, and then that gets thrown off to the wayside, and then there's a lot of elements that was just chaos. And so I like just to call this like festive nonsense, because that's just what it was.
Okay.
Because it's so much ridiculous things were happening, but it was all festive.
Oh, okay.
And I was like, okay. So like, it was fine. Not one I'm gonna rewatch. But I like to give shots of the new offerings, because you never know what might be your next Christmas classic. Like last year was a Christmas Story Christmas, which I did not rewatch this year, but I loved the sequel to A Christmas Story. That one hits home a lot with me. And then the year before that was 8-Bit Christmas, that's on Max, and that was a great one as well. So yeah, maybe this one doesn't hit that classic mark. The movie, the series, I should say, that Megan and I had a blast watching, and we finished this in 24 hours.
Wow.
We watched 10 episodes of Squid Game, The Challenge. Oh, man, I always like watching competition shows with Megan because we always have a great time discussing, like, what would you do in these scenarios? And this was just a prime example of, like, you know what? It's questionable why this series even exists because it negates the whole reason of the purpose of the show. But you know what? It's entertaining in a dramatic sense, and it's entertaining in a reality sense. It works. And they put a lot of money into recreating some of the classic scenes and also offering some new ones. And it was really, really good. It was so quick to get invested into this, and that's why we didn't stop watching.
Well, you love game shows.
I do very much.
See, this is the difference. Like, it's a reality show, but it's a game show. So it's like
exactly.
it hits your mark for you.
Yes, and Megan and I, we would watch hours of the Game Show Network without any hesitation. If when we had cable, if there was nothing on TV, Game Show Network. Doesn't matter the game, we're gonna watch it. We're gonna see what we were gonna do in those scenarios, and we will continue to do so.
Yeah, it's fun. It's fun.
It's a lot of fun. I think definitely for fans of Squid Game, I think it's worth the watch. It's just for the pure entertainment value of competition, because I think more than ever there's a lot of morality questions that given the position that you're in, what decision would you make? And I think they still play with that. They play with that in the show, and they play with that here as well. And it's so, like, there's just a lot of questions like, I'm not sure if I would have done that, or I'm not sure if I would have trusted this person. It's like, I would keep your mouth shut because that doesn't sound right. I wouldn't do that at all.
That doesn't
like,
sound right.
I wouldn't. No, it doesn't. You're talking too much. You're gonna get yourself eliminated, and then like, oh, there you go, you're eliminated. Like, come on, be smart about it. But we had a lot of fun watching that. And then to some stuff that we've both watched. The first one being Pain Hustlers. I was waiting for this one with Megan, and I agree with you. Really good movie.
It's solid. It's a solid film. Like, it's very, if I remember, the word I used for it was chaotic.
Yeah. I think the story moved so well with this movie. Like, I think I was instantly hooked with Emily Blunt and her, her tribulations and her struggle. And then, like, you can see it rising. You can see how, like, the money and, like, the environment that she was put in can get consumed by it very quickly. And also, like, she was very smart. Chris Evans, actually, I liked him in this movie a lot.
I did too. And, he has a tendency to, like, really lean in on accents, because it bothered me. Was it The Gray Man, the one he did with Ryan Gosling?
The Gray Man.
I could not get on board with his character. Whereas this was it like a New Jersey, New York, or I don't even. Yeah. Whatever it was. And whatever accent he played it well.
The movie took place in Florida.
That's right. Right here in, like, Lakeland.
Yeah, I know, right? I was like, it was so funny when they said, like, they're at a hotel in Lakeland. I was like, oh, I'm not sure about that. But sure, we can go to a hotel in Lakeland. Why not? I mean, I would have picked Tampa or Orlando, more flashy, but sure, a hotel in Lakeland.
But I think
that's one place you can go for a hotel.
Because this is based on a true story.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, I get it. But I kind of dived into it a little bit, and, like, the story's kind of crazy.
Yeah, it's wild.
But I got invested into it pretty easily, and it's nice. It's quick. Like, the pacing is very fast moving with it. So I really enjoyed it. I think the performances were great. I think you mentioned it was from David Yates, who was responsible for the back half of the Harry Potter movies. So, like, 5, 6, 7, and 8. And then he did The Legend of Tarzan, which wasn't that great. And then he did Fantastic Beasts 1, 2, and 3. And so, like, he's been dealing with franchises, big IPs for the better half of 10 years of his career, if not more. And then now he's given this. And I was like, man, you gave us, like, okay Fantastic Beasts movies, with the last one not being that great. I think what you needed was to get away from those Harry Potter movies.
This is where you need to be.
Yeah, absolutely. Like, he definitely needed definitely a break from all that, because, like, okay, so you are a good director. I know you are, because I've seen like, I love Harry Potter, like, Part 2. It's a great finale.
Like, oh, you actually don't suck.
Yeah. It's like, oh, it's the Harry Potter movies that were driving you down. I get it now. I get it. Got it. Yeah, let's stay away from those. I don't know. But I agree with you. Good movie. I really enjoyed it.
Let's talk about this one. Let's talk about this shit that you made me watch. For those who are
So can I give you a backstory? Can I give you a backstory?
For those who are just listening, we are gonna start talking about Leave the World Behind, because this is a movie that Matt goes, hey, if you have time, watch this movie. Didn't know it was 2.5 hours, but I would love to hear what you have to say about this.
So I'll give you backstory on this movie. I heard it was getting a lot of buzz.
I also saw that.
I heard it was getting a lot of buzz. A lot of people were talking about it. It's ending, the things that the movie was saying, the messages, getting buzz. First of all of a sudden, kind of random, Megan's on a plane, and then she tells me that, hey, I just saw Leave the World Behind. In my head, it's like, that movie just came out. You watched a movie so quickly. You watched a movie before I did. I know. And then she was like, you got to go watch this movie. It's amazing. And I said, okay. And so then she comes back and she's like, did you watch the movie? And I said, no, not yet. She's like, what are you doing? I told you to watch one.
I gave you one job, Matthew.
Yeah, I gave you one job to watch one movie. You watch movies, and you don't want the ones that I recommended. I said, okay, all right. I'm gonna watch it.
They're gonna feel some kind of way.
And I was like, okay. Like, and then I knew she was go back. She was leaving again to travel. I was like, before you come back, I will watch the movie. Okay, like, calm down. So then I watched the movie, and then I was like, Megan, it's really slow. It's a slow movie. And she goes, yeah, I watched it on 0.5 speed on the plane. It's like, you didn't mention that part.
1.5 or 0.5?
A 0.5. I think it was, I think you start at 1. So it's 0.5, 1.5 okay. From there. Or just either way, it was like a 0.5 from what faster. The normal version is. It was faster. Now, you can do that on the iPad and you can do that on your phone, but you can't do that like watching at home.
Is that enjoyable?
So she failed to mention.
Do you enjoy movies? I'm very curious about that. Like, what? I don't know. I just don't see. I understand. Like, well, I got to get it out. Like, I would rather watch it at regular speed and then just break it up, because then now you're mismatching the pacing that the director has set. But I digress.
I will say that I've done it before, because if you put on I think it's a DVD or Blu-ray, they do give you the option to watch it a little bit faster. And in some cases, I get it. I'm not opposed to it, just not all cases. I feel like some movies deserve the respect of its original speed. But it's an option that I will not ignore if I want to use it. So I will put it that way. But it was a bit of a slow burn. Actually, it was a lot of a slow burn. The movie was very much a slow burn. It's I want to get his name right. The director is Sam something.
Oh, it's the guy who did Mr. Robot.
Yes. Sam Esmail. And he's the creator of Mr. Robot. And it was also executive produced by the Obamas, which they loved the book. And I was like, okay, so we got some. It also has Ethan Hawke, Julia Roberts, Mahershala Ali. Those people at this point of their career don't attach themselves to just any project. Especially
also Kevin Bacon makes a cameo.
He does make a cameo. But I will say, like, Mahershala Ali, I feel like he's always picked his projects carefully. So I feel like this movie already has something to say. And granted, it was a slow burn, but I think there's a message there.
Oh, there absolutely is one. I think it's very well. Go ahead. You go ahead, and then I'll go.
No. Go ahead. I want to hear what you have to say.
So, I think it actually the movie had me for a while because I felt like we were building to this thing. Like we're building up to this thing, and all this crazy shit was happening, and it was more or less it was making sense because Mahershala Ali was. Like at one point he's dictating like, well, this is happening because of this and this is happening because of this. And then we're starting to see the effects of all these different things that he already predicted, that we knew it was going to happen. But then the movie just fucking ends. Like,
Yeah.
And then we get this random thing where this girl wants to watch the last episode of Friends, and then that's it. That's the end of the movie. And I was reading the Variety article where they were saying that, like, in the book, it ends very vague like that. Like, so the point is, it's like that's the end of the movie. It's like it's us moving into I guess their apocalypse. But that's the shit that we want to see. Leave the rest of that bullshit behind and that's the movie we want to see. We want to see, like, this whole movie should have been the first 30 minutes of what this movie should be about. Like, I want to see them survive. We want to see what happens on the end. Unless that's the point. The point is that is the next step, and that there will be no end to that, because there is no end, because we don't know what's going to happen. It's like, well, that's why you wrote the story. Like, it's like, is it supposed to be open-ended, or are we just supposed to be vague about what happens? Is there a part 2 to this? Like,
I doubt a part 2 to this. I think the ending was supposed to be vague. To me, I think the point of the story was that, like, us as a society are so either unaware of what's happening around the world, and two, like, also unaware and unprepared for any sort of anything.
Yeah.
And then on top of that, you have, which in some cases I can relate to, because this little girl was only fixated. No, and I think to me this was a big point. She was only fixated on watching the last episodes of Friends because the Wi-Fi and the internet is all crapped out. The world is literally ending, and her only concern is to watch the last episode of Friends. And she made a good point in the movie stating this, like, Dick, yeah, I know shit's happening and all this stuff, but, like, what am I gonna do? Like, I have my own, like, basically saying that, like, I know the world's going to shit, but this is the one thing that makes me happy, and I want to be happy when the world is ending.
Yeah.
And, like,
or Ethan Hawke, when he's, like, pleading to Kevin Bacon.
Yes.
He pleads for him to help, and he tells him, I am a useless man. Like, if I didn't have, basically, like, stating, which you see a lot of people who they just rely on their GPS to go everywhere. Like, that is a real thing. Like, many people, they just pop in the GPS, and wherever it tells them to go, that's where they go. They have no general sense of direction, or east, west, or how to just navigate throughout the world without it. So I thought that's what, like, there's certain points that made sense. Like, if everybody was cut off, we had no ways to get hospitals. I mean, the scene where they have all the Teslas just slamming into each other because all the GPS,
was horrifying.
I was like, that is scary, because that shit is already happening. Like, Teslas get off GPS, and then if they're on auto drive, like, they just go haywire. That tanker just falling over. What was a crazy scene? It was Marshall Ali. He's on the plane and he's running away, and then slowly in the background you see this plane just descend and just come smashing into the ground. And, like, this movie, there are a lot of good things about it. I just, like, I actually really enjoyed the writing. I just really did not like the ending. The ending just really put a bad taste in my mouth. I just wanted, like, if you want it to be vague, I feel like we need a little bit. Like, I'm okay for vagueness, but that was just way too vague. Yeah. There was absolutely no resolution to anything whatsoever. The only thing we got resolution on is that the son got medicine. That was it.
Yes. Yeah. And I feel like, I was more okay with the ending, more or less okay with the pacing. I think the pacing could have done a little bit better, because there's a lot of just conversation, and then also equally to randomness of, like, when all of a sudden his, like, the kid's teeth just started falling out. And so, like, I understand they gave somewhat of a reason for it, but it's just like, I feel like again, with the plane crashing and everything, is like, those scenes just felt like we needed something to keep the audiences awake, and to, like, keep them paying attention, with, like, very little payoff for it. Because basically the thing that we were worrying about this entire movie is like, the apocalypse was happening. Like, you were right from the beginning.
My only thing about that, I think why that worked for me, because it was very reminiscent of the pandemic, when everybody's locked up in their houses and all we're doing is just speculating on what the fuck is happening. We're getting
very true.
I mean, this is a more extreme case because they're getting zero information, whereas we were getting like some information. Whether it was true or not is debatable. But what I found interesting about that is a lot of it was speculating. It went from speculating. It's almost like they were just spiraling around each other. Because then, I mean, at one point, Julia Roberts and Michelle Ali are like entertaining the idea of an affair. Like they had they had this moment, but I think that comes with them being locked up together for so long.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I mean, this movie also. I mean, there was also the moment where Mahershala Ali was in the car, and after they had the scene with Kevin Bacon, and basically like the very end of the movie when he was explaining, he's like, "Oh yeah, no, I've heard about this tactic of like crumbling a nation," and like it's very real what he described to do that. It's like first you knock down their communication, then you knock down like I forgot the other 3 steps that he did, and like that's exactly pretty much that was happening right now. And I think I also like the part of the movie toward the beginning where we were questioning whether or not Mahershala Ali and his daughter was saying the truth.
Yeah.
Because they claimed it was their house, but we didn't know for sure. So there's always like this mystery of, is it not? And then eventually I feel like, again, going back to the pacing, there was a lot of things that it set up, but then had zero resolution for, or expected the audience to be like, yeah, what we set up was actually what it was, and we're going to move on. I could tell you that, but we're going to move on from it.
Yeah. I just kind of wanted, like, I would have mind, like, give me another 15 minutes or cut this to be like the first 30 minutes and then like fully expand out the whole story to tell, so we get resolution, so we know what's going on. But I think that was the point of this, is for us to be just as lost as they were.
Yeah, I mean, obviously we were, because a lot of random shit was happening throughout the whole movie. That's actually a really good point. Yeah, being lost just as they were, because there's a lot of randomness that happened, and some were explained and some were not.
Correct.
There's things were happening that were being unexplained, and we, as us as a society, there's a lot of stuff that we're told that are not unexplained as well. But yeah, I mean, where would you, in our official Box Office Binger 5-star rating that you can see in a letterbox, what would you give this?
I'm gonna go with a 3. Only
three?
because I wanted. There's just a lot of there. I just wanted more from it, but there are certain things. There is a lot to appreciate with this film. It was I wasn't bored for the 2.5 hours. I was just pissed that I didn't get more, or that certain things weren't explained to me.
Yeah, and I mean, I think that's completely fair. I can meet you with the 3, because like I think my pacing was the biggest issue, but other than that, like I'm still thinking about it. So there's something.
True. Like it's still like the things that happen are still kind of lingering with you.
Exactly. Yeah. And the last movie before our spoiler review of the week was supposed to be the spoiler review of the week. And by the end of this, I'm kind of curious if you would have rather preferred it to be.
And now I know how you feel, I guess. But now, see.
Oh, hold on. No, that didn't say anything
yes,
about either movie.
Yes, Matt.
No, it did not.
Matt,
I'm just saying.
We've been talking about movies for long enough that I can put money that I can guess how you feel.
I don't know. I mean, we'll see. We'll see.
Okay. Well, let's talk about May, December.
Your thoughts? Yes, let's talk about May, December.
I thought it was an interesting premise. It actually was inspired by the real life couple, Mary Kay Letourneau, I think it was a teacher and a student. Natalie Portman comes in. She's like slowly starting to unravel her past. She's been tasked with learning Julianne Moore's character and like the origins of their relationship. So what it is she was running a pet store, and she was 30 and she started a relationship with a kid who was 13 years old. And I just think it was interesting. She just started questioning about her past, and then they would always play this weird music like every time. It was like like very like soap opera-y. Yeah, I just thought it was interesting how she kind of went through every person in their life and just kind of like got like a different piece of the puzzle, and then leading all the way up to the end where Georgie, the husband, Like he ends up. Are we doing? Do you want to do spoilers?
Yeah, we can do spoilers. I mean, we kind of did it a little bit with Leave the World Behind, but yeah, I mean, we've both seen it, so we're going to talk about this movie anyway. So we'll put the spoiler warning up.
Yeah, we're like, Georgie like eventually has an affair with Natalie Portman because I guess with him like rehashing all this old information and him like coming to it almost is like him coming to terms with it as an adult. Like I guess he never fully processed what happened to him. And it was like watching him go through that, like you see him go through it as Natalie Portman's kind of like unraveling their past and kind of putting it back in the forefront. But just Julianne Moore is just she plays a very disturbed character, like somebody who seems like they spent a lot of time putting a control on everything that happened so that she could live her life without having to worry about it. And like Natalie Portman is like poking holes in that and kind of like really like opening the door and letting people realize what actually happened. It was interesting. I actually I enjoyed it. I thought the story was I just thought the story was really, really intriguing.
I will say that it's weird.
Yeah, it's weird.
This whole movie is weird because here's the thing. I knew that this was being talked about for the awards season. Obviously, it got some accolades for the Golden Globes, and I think maybe the critics. I don't remember. Actually, I don't think it was for the critics, but either way, it doesn't matter. The only thing I knew about this movie was what we're looking at right now. Was this poster?
Same.
I didn't see a trailer. I just know what people were saying, that it's a movie that's being looked at for the awards season. I went there completely blind, and then all of a sudden, I see Natalie Portman. She's an actress studying for a role of the movie about this interesting situation. And then as that story is unraveling, I was like, wait, what? Oh, I'm sorry. What? Affair 13 in the pet store? And you were married and you went for a child and what? And like the whole time I'm just like, wow, I definitely maybe should have watched the trailer, because like I think as the story was unfolding, as the audience, I was like kind of cringing at everything that was happening. And then there's a child involved in this as well, and then she served some prison time. And I think the reason why it's getting the awards attention, and maybe I'm not sure why it was being scaled back now, which is the reason why we did a small pivot on what we were reviewing this week. But I think some of the attention goes to Natalie Portman because essentially it's a character study about a character. It's a character study about studying a character, if that makes sense. Yeah. And so we see Natalie Portman kind of, and this is where I feel like not resonated with the movie, but like I can understand the movie the most as far as understanding some parts of the entertainment industry, is that actors go to dark places to get to the point where they want to go in their roles. And we see him go to deadly effects, as in like Heath Ledger in The Joker. Like that role drove him to basically to his death. And now we see in this case Natalie Portman's character kind of going, like she was fantasizing in the pet store what it would have been like to have sex or have pleasure with a child.
Yeah, I mean, even to go as far as when she's talking to her director, who she was like oddly, like randomly, like flirting with, and I asked it if his wife was going to be on set. I just thought that was kind of random. But then she's also talking to him like, well, what do these 13-year-olds look like? I don't know if they look. This guy's good, but he's not sexy enough.
Right.
She goes, I don't know if I mean, he had, and you could tell that she obviously had a crush on George. She's like, none of them have that silent confidence that Georgie has, or has that like that manliness that he has. It's like, okay. we see what's going on here.
Yeah, and then I think part of it was like she was, and maybe for her, and shortly after, talking directly to the camera, just being like fully into the character. But that was shortly after she slept with him. And I think for me, it was that moment where she's like, I am the character now. The person that had like the 13-year-old boy is now an adult, and I was able to seduce him thinking that I was the person that, the adult, and like kind of like you said, like rehashing those old memories, having something felt up on, like feeling wanted, I guess, in that scenario. We know that they were having some issues like sexually, because they weren't as active as they used to be anymore. They know they were having issues in the bedroom as well. So like now you have this younger person who is portraying the person that you slept with many years ago. Like you kind of get swept in the moment, and then for her, it was like, all right, I'm going to clean up and move on. I got what I wanted out of it. That helps me with my role. And it was just like, it was weird and it was disturbing, but also, you kept watching.
But it was also interesting to kind of see the aspect from the family where they're like, oh, you're doing this movie, like, be kind, like,
yeah,
like remember that these are people, like these are not just going to be, these are not just characters on a screen. These are real people's lives that you're about to portray. And I think that was just so interesting to see that,
Absolutely. And this movie had interesting things going for it. It's not one that I feel like I need to go watch again.
No.
But I think for the most appreciation that I can give this movie is obviously Natalie Portman and her performance, which I thought was really incredible. I like Julianne Moore, but I think Natalie Portman kind of nailed it. And then Charles Melton, who played the other guy,
Georgie, or the husband.
I think Georgie. Yeah, Georgie.
Oh no, actually, I'm sorry. Georgie is the son. What was it?
Oh, that's right. He is. Yes. It says.
What is the name of her?
Joe.
Excuse me.
Joe.
Joe
yes.
is not Georgie.
You're right. Joe. Joe is also being looked at highly for a potential Best Supporting Actor nomination as well. So, like a lot of love is going to his performance. I think Natalie Portman has some legs there. But yeah, ultimately, I like the movie as far as like an actor studying a person and kind of going in the deep end on that. And then we seen it kind of play out at the end of her like on set and playing out the role and seeing it do it again, and then like wanting to go it again. This is as if like this is the length that some actors need to go to be in the role, no matter how disturbing it may be. So that part I found interesting. The other parts, and then there's just a lot of weird moments in it as well. But yeah, so where was the rating on this?
I'm also gonna go 3. It's kind of like middle of the road for me. Like there are things to appreciate. Like I liked it. There are certain things I liked about it. I think the writing was interesting. I think the way that the way that he wrote the characters was interesting. There are a lot of things that worked. I mean, you get to explore kind of what you talked about, the whole aspect of the character learning. What is it that you said? The character studying the art of studying a character,
yeah.
Something like that. Yeah, I think that's great. And then what was the other? Oh, and then her kind of exploring the whole forbidden love thing, because she never really like judged them for it, but she would question. She was just questioning a lot of it, and the questioning is what caused a lot of the negative emotion around it, like her rehashing all this old stuff. So like, why did
and those questionings led to her getting a better performance, and like she wanted to perfect this character, so like asking all these questions were somewhat warranted, but some questions that they did not want to answer.
Yeah, I mean, even in her reading that note that Joe was supposed to burn was wild. It's like, oh, that's. And then when she even did it, and I just thought it was weird that she even did it with the lisp. Like she went full, like she just fully put herself into that character, and I thought it was just so important for us to see that aspect of her, of her process.
Yeah, and it's again, it's crazy. Like that moment, that scene, I think cements the movie.
Correct.
Right there. Like the whole reason why we were watching this movie is for that scene right there, to see what she went through mentally to get there, and how sometimes it's is not as clean as some people may expect.
True.
Because it takes you down a dark path, and it's not all. It's not like a switch. You have to go there. You have to understand. So if anything, it's just more respect for the actors who do go down to those places to get those performances. We were talking about not Eddie Murphy. We were talking about Jim Carrey as the Grinch, like what he had to go to get there.
True.
And I think this is very similar to that. But yeah, I think again, I agree with you. I'll give it more of a 3. Now, one of the reasons why we pivoted is because the Oscars shortlist came out. It's a list that they kind of released toward mid-December, where they give you they give you about maybe 10 categories, and here's a short list for those categories. And so based off that, a lot of the analysts around the Oscars for the Oscars pivoted what was going to be contended for Best Picture, and this kind of dropped on almost every list of no longer being considered for Best Picture. But now I ask you, Ernesto, do you feel like it maybe, and it still might be, these are just analysts, this could still be a Best Picture nominee, we don't know, but do you think it deserves to sit in that spot?
I wouldn't necessarily Best Picture. I would see for Natalie Portman for acting, and maybe for the script.
And the script is being looked at still as a high contender, or best original screenplay, and I can agree to that. It's definitely a unique script that I have not seen before, so it's definitely gets on originality. Yeah. So anyway, with that, we're going to be diving into our spoiler review of the week, the one that has been sweeping a lot of the headlines on Best Picture quality material is Maestro, written and directed and starring Bradley Cooper, also starring Carey Mulligan. Ernesto, your thoughts on the film?
Well, this movie was it was something. It was definitely it's definitely an Oscar baity type of movie. This is I mean, Leonard Bernstein, excuse me. Bernstein is known for composing the music for West Side Story, among so many other things. I liked there are a lot of things to appreciate about this movie. I think Carey Mulligan and Bradley Cooper's performance, phenomenal. I think the way that they played their characters was phenomenal. I think Bradley Cooper's makeup and hairstyling was absolutely on point, even going through the different various points in his life. But it just seems like this movie was like Hollywood appreciating Hollywood. It also seemed like the movie was giving you information as if you already knew it. Like we were just jumped to certain points in his life. Like I had to look up. I had to go find some of it. Now I found USA Today has an article. New York Times has an article, kind of detailing that as well. Like, when he left his wife when she got her cancer diagnosis, and then he came back. Like we didn't learn that we didn't know that in the film. It was implied because you saw him a little bit older, kind of doing other things, and then being called back home. But it wasn't explicitly told, and I feel like there was a lot of different moments like that. I liked the black and white cinematography. It was very engaging. There's one scene where he's conducting and he's in a massive shadow and she's a little small person in the middle of his shadow and she's lit in his shadow. So I thought it was just a way to show okay, well, that's obviously how she feels. Like she feels like she's living, she has to live her life in his shadow. I feel like this movie is just really sad for Carey Mulligan. Like you really, it's very reminiscent to me of Priscilla, like the wife of for lack of a better terms, like a rock star. Like this is somebody who's even in the music industry, somebody who's well renowned as the wife who did all that she could to prop him up, to get him further where he was. I mean, he was already established. He got lucky. He got a last minute call to compose for another composer that felt ill, and that kind of kickstarted his careers. But he had to live this life of as a homosexual. There were some articles online saying that, debating on whether he was bisexual or homosexual, and it was like, no, like many gay men of the time, he was a gay man who was married. Like, and then but you can still, what I really loved about their chemistry is that you can tell that they still had such a strong bond. Like,
Absolutely.
whether or not it was, I mean, to a certain extent, there was some romance there because of, they had children together, and just the way that the way he talked about her, like he truly, truly loved her, and she truly loved him, but she wanted to let him live his life to his truth, and wanted to see what that would look like. And it's a very sad story for her. And that's kind of like, that's kind of where I was at. I mean, you really see it weighing on her when him and one of his, what's the best word for it? Friends would come, when one of his friends came with him to the opera. And like afterwards, she just put all his shit outside, and he goes, I haven't seen you since the opera. Just, I wanted to see how you're doing. And, and it's to that point you can see where she's fed up, and, he eventually just started getting sloppy with his affair, and it was like a slap in the, almost like a slap in the face to her. And we saw that affected through their family life, through their kids. I mean, fortunately, he was there for her at the end of her life, which I thought was just so heartbreaking. I felt like we should have gotten maybe a little bit more time with that. Like I felt like we didn't get enough time with the end of her life to like really pay respect to her, or even to go as far as to see how her death affected him. Like we didn't really get any of that, or we didn't even really get like an insight into his genius and how he composed. Like I felt like we got half of each story, whereas like the main thing was, I felt like the core of this story was, a gay man who was married, who achieved such success in his career, but still was battling with these things.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think the biggest lack in this movie for me was the presentation of its story. It was very all over the place when it comes to what was the central story you're trying to tell. Because if it's a romance between these two characters, and let's focus on that. But then you also were showing snippets of his career, which was like, well, now I'm interested. This is a very famous composer. I also like composers, so I would love to see a movie about that. But that's not what this movie was about. It wasn't about his career. His career was mentioned, like it was like an afterthought to what the movie was about, which was this romance and their relationship and the complications that they were going, and the struggles that she was having and the success that he was having, and kind of the free spirit that he was. And eventually, like you said, it was getting sloppy. I was having a hard time connecting on where this movie wanted to go.
Yeah, I felt like I connected more with Carey Mulligan because you got more time with her dealing with all the things that he was doing. Like you got way more time with that to like really grasp where she was at mentally with the whole thing. So but also one of my favorite scenes is towards the very end when he's at the school and you're having this one-on-one with him and one of the students, and he's like kind of going into like the art of conducting about a certain thing, and I was like, this is a super interesting scene that I wish like we could have gotten more of, and then maybe we could get like a thought process into his genius and into like how he was able to do things. Like that is the movie I want to see. I want to see more about his creative side. But I did think a really good scene that sticks with me is when she says some shit to him when they're arguing, and she's like, it's so draining. It's like, she tells how you don't know how draining it is to love someone who doesn't love and accept themselves when they're having that argument after the opera. And I just go, wow, that's just like that hit. I don't know. For me, that scene just hits really hard, where like she just really lays into him, and you really get an insight on what she goes through, because she has to do her part to help take care of him, because she didn't do these things. Who's to say he would have gone to the heights that he would have without her support?
Yeah, and I again I think they did a really good job in this movie to kind of focus on the relationship and the hardship. And I think I agree with you. Like when putting the focus on Carey Mulligan's character, she shines in that, and like you feel more sympathy for her
Absolutely.
than you do with Bradley Cooper, which they didn't like. They spent a lot of time focusing on. It's almost like this, like the action was happening through Bradley Cooper and the emotion was happening through Carey Mulligan.
Mm-hmm.
That's how I felt about this movie. It's like he did something and then she reacted emotionally to it, and then he did something and then she did, and then it was back and forth with that. But it was never what he was feeling; it was always what he was doing, and with whether it was career or the affair or whatever. And then we're getting a response from her. That being said, what I feel like where this movie 100% shines, it's its visual storytelling.
Yes.
You mentioned the scene with the shadow and her in the background. It's like the cinematography in this movie is arguably one of the best I've seen all year. Every scene felt like it was thought out. Like the frame.
Absolutely.
What does the frame needs to look like? And to me, I have its faults with the story, but like what you're trying to tell me within this frame says a lot. And like even the scene where like in the very beginning where he wakes up and like he burns the curtain, basically finding out that he needs to be the understudy, or like he's being called up to compose. And that sweeping shot of him leaving the bedroom, and it goes into like an overhang of him passing from room to room, and then him eventually coming out of the hallway and then coming out into the orchestra, into the, what do you call it? What do you call that? The venue. Not an arena, but it's
The opera house or
opera house, whatever it was. But yes. And you see it sweeping down the chairs and then coming back up, and then it's filled with people and he's performing, and like that was done really well. Like to me, that was a great opening shot. Like one of the first shots in the movie, and I was like, okay, we're gonna see something really cool here. And then to even go further into that, where there was like one scene where they were having a conversation, but like I can hear the conversation. I think he's like Bradley Cooper's having a conversation with his sister, and then also Carey Mulligan was having a conversation with somebody else at the party, but they were not the focus of the scene. It was almost like it was trying to showcase the chaos of this party that was happening, because the parts of the movie I was like, where are they? Who's talking?
Oh, there's
Like,
another scene like that where him and Carey Mulligan are sitting by. It's funny you brought that up. Where him and Carey Mulligan are sitting by the pool, but the shot is so far away. It's almost like you're like in the parking lot, like watching them have a conversation from far away, but you hear them as if they're sitting right next to you.
Right, exactly. And it's like it's so many interesting shots, and one of the best ones was, and so I think one of the best scenes in the movie was that performance he did in the church, where it
at the very end. Oh yes.
Well, it wasn't the very end, but I think there's still like 30 minutes left in the movie. But it was just a combination of like letting the whole music play out, and you just see Bradley Cooper acting his ass off for that Oscar. He's just like, and he's going crazy. And then some of like, and you see it's warranted because they showed some footage of Leonard Bernstein, like the real Leonard Bernstein.
Oh, in the
showed
credits.
some real life footage of him in the credits, and then you see him like really being expressive and with his conducting, and like that whole scene played out so well.
Yeah.
Like I was glued to the TV within that entire scene, and then it ends. Oh, sorry, I just hit the mic. It ends with like the final shot, like it kind of pans around, and it ends like on a half shot of like the back of Carey Mulligan, and like you just see her watching it like throughout all of it. I was like, damn, if this movie doesn't win for best cinematography, at the very least.
Well, we'll have to see what else is up against, but it will definitely, it is a strong contender. I would think.
Absolutely. I mean, very much so. And then I think Bradley Cooper, we mentioned in the top, 9 Oscar nominations, with, I believe, most of them, some of them are producing, but I believe, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4 of the 9 are for acting. Silver Linings Playbook, American Hustle, American Sniper, and A Star Is Born. And then the other 5 has been to producing Joker and Nightmare Alley. And then he also received an Oscar nomination for Best Picture for A Star Is Born and for Motion Picture for American Sniper. So he's definitely been in the conversation. But you know what I didn't say? He was a winner. I think he should. This is the movie. He's gonna win something. Like, look how many hats he put on in this movie: producer, writer, director, starring. He's gonna be nominated for either one. That's a guarantee. He's gonna be nominated for either one of them or all of them. And I think it's safe to say, in my opinion, he will win one of those. I just don't know which one it is.
I wouldn't say writing. If I had to guess, I would say probably directing, or best actor.
I feel like he has more legs to stand on best actor, and this is going into awards talk here, but like Christopher Nolan has a pretty good shot as best director.
True, very true.
For Oppenheimer, so maybe not director. So like I think if I have to guess, because we don't know, I think his biggest competition when it comes to the actors category is Cillian Murphy, also in Oppenheimer.
It's gonna be strong. This is gonna be a strong award season.
It's gonna be definitely a strong award season, but at the very least, the nominations there. Bradley Cooper acted his ass off in this, and like I wouldn't say he's unrecognizable, but if you look at a younger Leonard Bernstein, identical.
Yeah.
Like, they did makeup very well in this. I also can see it for makeup as well. But I think where I'm more impressed was with the cinematography in this movie. Downright gorgeous.
Yeah, it was so good.
It was really good. Again, the story kind of lacked for me a little bit, mainly with like what it wanted to tell the audience, like where it wanted the audience to, like, I just feel like it was disjointed or disconnected. I felt disconnected with it because, to your point, it's one of those movies again where they expect you to know this person, and it's light and their life, and you're just along for the ride as if I already know what the story is. I don't know what the story is. Like I'm asking you to tell me what the story is.
This is why I'm here.
And this is why I'm here, yeah. And like, I understand, like, visually, again with the makeup, we can see that time has passed, but I don't know what that means. You know, It's like I don't know what happened between those moments and what that, like, the struggles you went through within those moments, or exactly what time period I'm supposed to be in at the moment. But again, going back to visual storytelling, I like that they switched the aspect ratios, like switched to black and white. There was a moment I was watching for 5 minutes, Ernesto, and I was like, and Megan was like passively watching, and I go, damn, it switched to color. When did that happen? and she just laughed.
Did I not notice?
Did I? Yeah, as like the whole movie was in black and white the entire time. So it's like, again, visually, you pass the time through your aspect ratios, and like even the color wasn't as bright when it switched to color. It was a little bit grainy. So like depicting like the 70s and the 80s, and then eventually we progressed to, like, I wouldn't say today because he passed away in 1990, but definitely maybe in the 80s it got higher resolution at that point. But yeah, I think I just wish I knew more about Leonard Bernstein. I think that's the biggest thing. The movie's about him, and I don't know much about him.
They didn't even give us like an end card at the end that tells us like, hey, this person died at this day. He achieved so much. He did this. He's known for this and that. Like I liked that the whole movie, like all the scores in the movie, is all his work. The whole movie. Mm-hmm. So I thought that was great. But I wish I would have gotten more. Like, give me more information. Like, don't assume I know this whole man's career.
I agree. I think because I wanted to learn more about his career, and I think you showcased a really good scene. We see him being very expressive with the music that he's writing. Like I would love to see a scene where he is like composing or at least writing the music for West Side Story.
Yes.
And I know that they played the opening number in the movie during a scene, so like they definitely credit him for that. And I looked it up. The composer for the movie is him. Like they used all of his music, and they did the same. Steven Spielberg did the same thing for West Side Story. If you look up the composer of his movie, it is Leonard Bernstein, no other composer. So they just rehashed obviously his music. I think it's also worth noting that this movie was produced by Martin Scorsese and Steven Spielberg. And which were names in the credits I were not expecting to see. Well, actually, I did expect to see Steven Spielberg because I saw Amblin Entertainment in the opening credits. But I think this kind of Steven Spielberg makes sense because he made West Side Story.
Oh, of course.
So, yeah, focusing on a movie about his life checks out. But I think just having Steven Spielberg and Martin Scorsese in as a producing chair to it, and it was an executive producer; they were producing. I think it just shows a lot of respect for what this man was able to achieve.
Agreed.
But I don't think this movie showcased his work.
No, but what exactly? Like it just kind of gave us an in between of all that.
Agreed. So where it stands, I think you might have said this. Like I think it makes sense. I think it's gonna be up there for Best Picture. But I think you said at the very beginning, it's an Oscar bait movie, through and through.
It 100% is. And Hollywood loves to talk about Hollywood, which is,
Yeah.
Okay.
So I wouldn't call it a cinematic masterpiece, but I think it's definitely on the line of an Oscar bait. But it had its moments. I did enjoy a few parts about this movie, and it kept it and I will compare this movie to Tar. Tar had nothing going for it, in my opinion.
Agreed.
But I feel like this movie does.
Agreed. There are things to enjoy about this movie, but will I ever go back and watch it again? Probably not.
No, I agree. But with that, Ernesto, your final thoughts?
It was good. I kind of want there's just some more that I wanted from it. I don't like that. Like it's implied that I have to know other aspects of his life to get a better understanding, whereas the movie is supposed to kind of do that for you. Like give us some title cards, give us some other things. I think Carey Mulligan had a phenomenal performance. I would hope to see her nominated, especially for Bradley Cooper. As far as Oscar categories, I see this going for makeup and hairstyling, obviously production design, writing, directing, Best Actor, Best Actress. And probably...
Not Best Picture?
I just don't see it for Best Picture, but that doesn't mean it won't be nominated.
Right. And your Letterboxd 5-star rating.
I really wish we can get some halves in there. Because I almost want to give it a 3.5, but I guess I'll have to settle on a 3.
Well, we can on Letterboxd we can do halves. When we post them, we can't do halves. I haven't gotten there.
Then I'm gonna give it a 3. Then I give this movie a 3.5.
Okay, all right. But I guess leaning for the socials, we're on 3 then.
Yes.
Okay, fair enough.
Unless you're at 3.5, then we're closer to 4. But then it's like, is it 4? It's not.
It's not a 4.
It's definitely not a 4.
I will lean more. I'll give you the half. I'm gonna keep the 3.
Okay.
I think it's a solid 3, and I think just because I couldn't connect with the story as much, but between the performances and the cinematography, it allowed me to get through the movie. Even though some parts were a little slow, some parts were like I need to play catch up with what's going on with the story. And I agree with you. Yeah, there's a lot that I wish I learned more about this, like Bernstein's career. But that's not what this movie is about. It was more about his romance and his connection and relationship with his wife, among other things as well. But it was almost like get to learn about the person behind the scenes, not the person's work. But at the same time, it wasn't about that. I feel like I learned more about Carey Mulligan than I did about Bradley Cooper. And just I don't think we ever said the character's name, but she played Felicia Montalegro.
Mm-hmm.
Montalegro. But yeah, I feel like it was more her movie than it was his. So that's kind of where I stand. But I give it a 3. As much as I don't agree with it, I think Best Picture will most likely be the case. But where I do see the case for is Best Directing, Best Actor, Best Actress, and Best Cinematography and Makeup. I can see makeup in there as well.
Agreed.
And I don't think they're gonna give it to music. I doubt it because it's just all his older work. But I might be surprised they might give it to music because this movie's about music. So
True.
Who knows with that? But anyway, there you go. That's our spoiler review on Maestro. It's on Netflix. If you're definitely into the award season as much as we are, definitely recommend go watching it. Might not be everyone's cup of tea, but that's what we're here. We're here to do the dirty work for you if you don't want to watch it.
Exactly.
And you don't care about spoilers. But with that, Ernesto, that gives us a wrap on episode 199. And the last episode that we are recording in 2023, that only means one thing for next week.
We're gonna do our year in review. We're gonna review 2023, and
are we?
Well, at least not. Wait, what do you mean? What are you talking about?
I was talking about just episode 200.
Well, that too. We have 200 coming up. And then usually how we start the year, we recap, hey, let's talk about our best of 23. And then what are we looking forward to for 2024? I mean, there's a lot to look forward to this year. And I think I always look forward to that. Look forward to that. It's always a fun conversation every year when we have it. And Matt, you'll be proud of me because this year, the beginning of 23, I actually tracked everything that I wrote. Everything that I watched. Wow. I have it all listed out. For things.
Oh, so
I have my list, a full list for 2023, a very comprehensive list of everything that I watched, for as far as TV, movies, and documentaries.
So I would say to properly give a list I think I need to give it one more week because there's a few things I want to watch that are in theaters before we kind of dive into our best of 2023 and kind of doing a recap. So maybe and either not the next one, but the one after that or the one after that, depending on where we are. We haven't even discussed
what we are doing
at all. But within January, 100%, we're going to be talking about the best of 2023, and we need to figure out what we're doing for episode 200.
I think we know though. I mean, we're already on the Oscar track. We got to I just say we keep trucking along. So
keep trucking along in the Oscars. I know. I'll just put some inside baseball. We talked about Rebel Moon, and I don't think happening. You're in favor for it.
I'll just tell you that it's not happening. I don't want to watch it. Everything I've seen about that movie says, don't watch it. Like,
oh man, I wanted to hear your reaction for that because like a lot of people are shitting on it.
Yeah, not great.
A lot of people. And like I'm gonna watch it. I gotta give my respect to Zack Snyder. I gotta see what people are hating on it.
You enjoy that.
That's just like, you know what? You can
have fun, Matthew. Have a great time.
He said, you can also have Aquaman 2 because I ain't
watching that shit either. I don't like. It's eventually gonna drop on Max. I'll just wait till then. Like, it doesn't seem like something I need to rush out to the theaters. Some things that I am looking forward to, I want to knock out before the year ends. I really want to see Iron Claw, and I really. Oh, there was another one. I don't want to see it, but I already know I'm gonna have to see it. Poor Things.
Yeah, Poor Things is the one that's getting a lot of attention. I have respect for the director, but he does make some weird shit, and I feel like Poor Things is no exception to that. And but it's getting the buzz. It's definitely for the award season, so I think it's gonna be weird. But it's a lot of people are saying it's best picture quality. That doesn't mean anything, but at least the nomination. And so if it's nominated, we have to at least watch it. So far, we had a good track record of watching every Oscar-nominated film. And this year, we're trying to get ahead of the game to even watch all of them before we even know the official nominations. Yeah. So
we're doing pretty good. We've got a lot knocked out on that list.
Absolutely. So stay tuned for episode 200. We don't know what's going to be there, but we do know it's going to happen. and we really hope you guys are watching and listening to us celebrate our 200th episode as we ring in the new year of 2024. I can't believe we've hit 200.
I know, wow. 200 almost 4 years later. Isn't that crazy? It's kind of crazy to think about.
It's basically 50 episodes a year, which is also makes sense because there's 52 weeks out of the year. We take a break here and there. It all checks out,
works.
right?
It tracks. It works.
It tracks. But if you want from us, go follow us on our social media channels on Facebook, YouTube, and TikTok at Box Office Bingers. You can follow us on our Instagram and Thread page at boxoffice_bingers. And you can find us on our X and Letterbox page at Box Office Binger without the S. The thing about Letterbox is that I've been working hard to make sure that all of the reviews we've ever done for this show is on Letterbox, either by like a number rating system of 1 through 5 or an actual review that we have written for social and talked about here on the show. Now I can officially say all of that is on our Letterboxd page right now. So if you were ever curious about a movie we had discussed in the past and maybe don't have time to listen or to watch that episode, go to our Letterboxd page, follow us there. Those are quick reviews. Also, you can find all of that as well on our Instagram page at boxoffice_bingers and our Facebook page at Box Office Bingers. We'd like to thank each and every one of you for listening to us just talk about movies and have a good time with it. We hope we see you next week as we celebrate our 200th episode and ring in the new year. And with that, I've been your host, Matt Diaz.
Ben Ernesto Santos. See ya.